Good afternoon, and welcome back, friends, to the second day of our meeting of Shining Waters Regional Council. For those of you who are just joining us today, my name is Betty Lou McNabb. I am the president of Shining Waters, and on screen with me is Peter Hartmans.
Everybody, morning, afternoon,
the executive minister for both Canadian Shield Regional Council and for Shining Waters Regional Council as well. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to please turn off your video and your microphone. And if you are on the phone, I'll ask you to please mute yourself by pressing *6. We begin with our acknowledgement of the land. We acknowledge the sacred land on which our churches stand, and that treaties between Indigenous peoples and settlers have not always been honored. We are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Turtle Island is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The first call in our regional mission statement is to live in right relations with Indigenous peoples and to respond positively and meaningfully to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action, and the caretakers of our Indigenous Circle calls to the church. And the second is to become an anti-racist church. We strive to make this meeting and all gatherings of Shining Waters Regional Council safe space for people of all abilities, any sexual orientation, any gender identity, racialized peoples, all others who are marginalized and have been excluded or harmed by the church. This afternoon, we offer our gratitude again to Jake Charles, a member of the community of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. Jake is going to welcome us to this new day in our gathering, which occurs on Indigenous lands from across the region. And Jake, I'll invite you to unmute yourself and turn on your video.
Hello.
Hello, and Jake, there you are.
All right.
And I'll invite you to offer us a welcoming good morning song.
All right, miigwech. Nanishkishis Dishnakos, Mayingando Dem, Shanyang and Ishinabe and Dujaba. My name is Hummingbird from the Wolf Clan, Shining Waters and Anishinaabe. I say thank you very much for the invitation and coming here and joining you guys in your meeting, your council. And I'm going to offer you guys a song here, invite the spirits, your higher power, God, whoever that may be, to guide you on your way here. And pray for a very good day today and enjoy the sun when we can get that chance. Okay, miigwech. No shana gets no shana gets No shanangesh paming oh No shanang espame ayena no shanang espame ayena Oh, Chamigwech, those words were given to me by one of our elders on the First Nation, Charlie Warren, and those songs. That song means the Great Spirit or God, how may you see it looking down on us from above, and to bless us for this day. Aho, Chamigwech.
Oh, miigwech, miigwech, miigwech. Thanks, Jake. I just want to remind us of our holy manners and our process. I want to remind everyone of our conversation yesterday regarding how we will be in community together during this meeting. So if you missed the conversation yesterday or weren't present, we have a script of that on our website, and the link can be found in the chat. Want to remind you of our chaplains, Reverend Andrew Kunyong Lee and Reverend Brianne Swan. Their numbers will be placed in the chat as well, and it's also in your workbook if you're needing chaplaincy during the meeting. We move into worship again this afternoon, which will be led by Nikki Andre again. And I invite Nikki to unmute yourself and turn on your video. And welcome back. It's good to have you. And we look forward to our worship this afternoon. And so I'll pass it on to you, Nikki.
Okay, so before we get started, well, first of all, hello everyone. Hello again. Before we get started, I'm going to invite us all to take some time to get settled and comfortable once more. So shut any unnecessary windows on your computer or your device. Turn off your phone. Shut the door if possible. Take a moment to remember we are in bodies. Sit up straight. Feel your sit bones making firm contact with the seat beneath you. Reach down towards the earth through the building floorboards. And if your feet are touching the ground, make sure they are firmly planted. Now let's take a few breaths together. On your next inhale, let your spine become nice and long, and on an exhale, shoulders move back and down. Chin parallel with the ground, ears balanced over shoulders, shoulders balanced over hips, and if your feet are on the ground, knees balanced over ankles. Take a moment to notice your breathing. Feel your belly rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. Notice how your chest subtly expands and contracts as you breathe in and out. Even your arms and legs are almost imperceptibly lengthening and contracting with your breath. Let your breath breathe you. In your own time and at your own pace, take 3 breaths here to come into your body, this moment, settling into this place and time. Gaze softens or close your eyes as you are comfortable, as your mind gently opens to take in these words. Holy Spirit, known to us by many names and beyond all naming, may the words on my lips and the meditations in all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God. Walk with me now. Trace the footsteps of our ancestors backwards in time, and back further still. You are divining water in your ancestors' native lands, looking for the spring. Hear it trickling in the distance. Now you see it, how the spring flows to a tiny stream, winding. As the stream grows to surging river, follow. Feel its spray on your hands and feet and face. At the waterfall where your tributary rushes on beyond your people's lands, kneel, cup your hands, and drink. What do you taste? You know this cascading river is just one of many in a vast watershed in the distance. You can smell the body of water into which all empty. Breathe it in. Transported, you are now standing on its shores beneath a mighty oak. Take it all in. Get in. Get wet. Immerse, wade, dive, dip as you are able. Soak in this commingling of rivers as these words seep into your skin. We are in this together. At a time when humankind faces existential crises on seemingly every front, social structures crumbling, economies strangling, violence rising, governments shutting out and down, environmental fever soaring, the health of Earth's inhabitants in decline, poisoned water, food, and air, though we bicker on Facebook in our curated streams. We are in this together. Divided, we are falling. I am because you are. Oak trees. Naima Penniman, an activist, artist, grower with soul fire and wild seed farms, thinks we can learn a lot from oaks. When Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf, she says, almost everything lost its footing. Houses were detached from their foundations, trees and shrubbery were uprooted, signposts and vehicles floated down the rivers that became the streets. But amidst the whipping winds and surging water, the oak tree held its ground. How? Instead of digging its roots deep and solitary into the earth, the oak tree grows its roots wide and interlocks with other oaks. And you can't bring down 100 oak trees bound beneath the soil. How do we survive the unnatural disasters of climate change, environmental injustice, over-policing, mass imprisonment, militarization, economic inequality, corporate globalization, and displacement? We must connect in the underground, my people. In this way, we shall survive. I agree with Naima. We, like those oak trees, should be tapping our roots deep and wide, pumping our gifts back into our common ground, like plants give back to the soil, weaving together, collectively securing ourselves, readying ourselves, protecting each other from the ineludible storms. But there are so many noisy, nagging wounds and traumas, disappointments and frustrations on all sides with our imperfections and the imperfections of our fellow humans and this imperfect society we've created together. So many knots in our stomachs, clenched fists and muscles and wombs, so many raised shoulders and backs up, frustrating and blocking and damming love's way. Rumi is famously quoted for challenging humanity with this charge. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Let love through. Stand open on that shore. Let yourself be washed by the waves. It's in the body. Ubuntu. But more and more as time goes on, we humans have been managing people the same way we've been managing the rest of the world. Poorly and on our own terms, with a bias towards what's in it for us individually, rather than whether and how it serves the common good. As Christian Westerners in particular, even when we're trying to help others, we tend to choose arm's length charity projects over becoming inextricably woven. Commitments into the long-term mutual collaborations, commitments to ongoing relationships of mutual empowerment. Unlike oak trees, we like to think, 1, that we don't need saving, and 2, that we know what's best. We convince ourselves that we can, from our privileged position, take an objective, wide view, discern and decide independently which way forward is best, most worthy, useful, and fair. We ask, what's an efficient use of my gifts, resources, and money, and what projects and people are worthy recipients, rather than how am I or might I be a gift to the commons? What role do I serve in my wider community's collective empowerment? Our culture is prone to the habit of rushing in to save the day and make right without fully taking stock of what's going wrong and how we might be implicated in creating the problem in the first place. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. I mentioned last week that I'm a gardener with homesteading aspirations. I'm the great-granddaughter of a farmer. My mom grew up in the Caribbean on a family plantation in the mountainous rainforest. She and her extended family, including aunts, uncles, and cousins, lived off the land. They didn't have much money, but under Daddy Goozy's savvy agricultural leadership, they built and maintained their homes and made a good life. Whatever they couldn't grow, raise, or produce on their own, they traded for. Rural life was not for my mom, and though she has an undeniable green thumb, she left the countryside as soon as she could, ultimately settling in Toronto, where she married my dad and had me. Growing up in Canada, straddling a number of intersectional oppressions, I've come to the hard-earned realization that I will never truly be well, full, and liberated unless I find a way to interweave my roots with other oak trees like me. I know we need to create a good and common life, build safe, affordable homes, grow healthy, life-giving food, give back, and hold fast to our land and her people, sustainably, with the ethical grace Heather spoke of yesterday. Sankofa is a word in the Twi language of Ghana. It means to retrieve, to go back and reclaim. The story of Sankofa is based on the African proverb, "It is not taboo to go back and fetch that which you have forgotten," meaning that you can't know where you are going unless you know where you came from. Though I feel my life depends on it, it's been extremely hard for me to find ways to move gracefully towards my calling. I feel I'm just scratching the surface of understanding how to decolonize myself, my life, before it's too late. But here's some of what I do know. What is now known as Southwestern Ontario is part of the lands subject to the dish with one spoon wampum belt covenant. One dish, one spoon, no knives. Pope Nicholas granted Christian nations the authority to loot and enslave non-Christian nations, saying, "Invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans, take their possessions, and reduce their persons to perpetual slavery." This decree justified European settlers in their genocide against Indigenous people. It also set the stage for the transatlantic slave trade. When Black people were first stolen from Africa and brought to North America as forced unpaid labor, it was for their farming expertise. Subsequently, Black settlers arrived in Nova Scotia in three main groups: the Loyalists of the 1780s, the Maroons in 1796, and the refugees of the War of 1812. They arrived under the pretense of offers of generous land grants from the British government. But while their white counterparts were typically given deeds to at least 100 acres of fertile land, Black families were given 10-acre lots of poor quality land without legal title. They could not sell, mortgage, or legally pass that land down to their ancestors. So while Black farmers have a long history in Canada going back as far as the 1700s, Black-owned farms are disproportionately rare. I know of only 3 in southwestern Ontario. A 2020 proof analysis of Stats Canada DATS from 2017 to 2018 found that Black communities are 3.5 times more likely to experience food insecurity compared to white Canadians. 28.2% of Indigenous and 28.9% of Black households are food insecure. In higher income Canadian neighborhoods where families are most likely to be homeowners, 74% of families are white. But in lower income neighborhoods where families are more likely to rent, 69% of residents are racialized. Families who own land or homes are able to pass down equity, while children of families who don't can only expect to inherit rising costs. One dish, one spoon, no knives. For just as the body is one and has many members, so it is with Christ. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet. If one member suffers, all suffer together. And if one member is honored, all rejoice. We know this, and it makes us very uncomfortable. The idea of being inextricably bound up with each other like oak trees. What is it about this that makes us so uncomfortable? My friend Scott Richmond has an interesting take. He argues that our discomfort is with our dependence on others, particularly on those we don't know or understand, because our interdependence, argues Scott, is an affirmation of our own radical insufficiency to ourselves. We like to think we've got this on our own, alone or in our small families or small congregations or clubs of alliance. We build fences, draw borders, stockpile, write treaties, then dishonor them, issue decrees, write property laws, like aberrant little ladybugs. But ultimately, when we act outside the interest of our common good, life keeps calling us back, insistently. So where do we go from here? Indigenous elders often petition for help achieving their goals in a good and humble way. Heed this wisdom. Seek a good and humble way. Connect with people continuing good traditions of non-hierarchical community building. Learn from them. Join them. Watch out for your neighbor's kids. Ask how you might help out a single or not single struggling parent. Offer to give someone without a vehicle a ride to get groceries. Do you have or have access to land or property that folks could make good use of, or connections to people or organizations that do? Could you facilitate folks connecting with land linking orgs, like those for BIPOC growers looking for space to grow in? Have fruit trees that have a bounty that's going to waste? Call not far from the tree and arrange to have that produce harvested and shared. It's not too late to engage your local candidates, re where they stand on policies for the common good. Are they committed to universal basic income and UNDRIP, preserving agricultural land, green belts, conservation areas, affordable cooperative housing, cooperative farming initiatives, public health care, community long-term care? And are their policies and commitments on these issues transparently laid out in their platform? Check their professional history. Does it match what they're professing on the campaign trail? Does it champion the common good? If they've had a political career previously, what's their track record and their voting history? Wear your convictions on your sleeve. Post a sign or symbol or wear a pin that lets people know you're an ally committed to the work and they can come to you for help. Here's redemption. Love remembers. We are not alone. Trust that and sit with that discomfort. I would offer that as people of faith, we are charged not only to sit with that discomfort, but to bear it, like labor pains when water breaks. We can give ourselves over to the common good. We can, as Scott says, open ourselves to coming undone. Lose sight of ourselves when we encounter an idea or someone or something we don't understand. We can give back to our messy, entangled, collective empowerment. All creation every beetle, pillbug, and hoverfly, every microbe and blade of grass, every person, inextricably woven pieces of God's light, necessary fragments of embodied love. Gaze softens, or eyes gently close as you are comfortable. Let your breath breathe you, as, in closing, we consider this question. What if God has no agency without us? No hands, feet, or throat but our own. If God is not whole without us, if the common good is not done without us, then we have a lot of work to do. Ashe and Amen.
Thank you so much, Nikki. So looking forward to hearing your message this morning. I'm sorry, early this afternoon. You have left us with a good question, and hopefully folks will take it back and ponder it in their heart. We are so grateful for your presence, Nikki. I hope you're still there, and for helping us to prepare for our time together this afternoon. Ubuntu. Amen. This brings us, folks, to our time of our proposal for the Indigenous Church to General Council. We are in the midst of a General Council meeting being held online between February and August, the longest General Council meeting that we've ever had. And for several weeks, the Council has been engaged in listening sessions to learn about the various proposals before them. A significant proposal has been brought by the National Indigenous Council regarding the restructuring of the Indigenous Church. And we are pleased to welcome Reverend Teresa Burnett Cole to share with us about this important conversation. Teresa is a coordinating minister at Glebe Street James United Church in Ottawa and a member of the General Council Executive and the Indigenous Church. We're going to, after Teresa is done sharing with us, we're going to take an all-purpose break for 15 minutes and come back with a song. I just wanted to let folks know that because we'll let Teresa share what she has to say, and then we'll go to break. So I invite Teresa to unmute yourself and turn on your camera, and there you are, and welcome to share with us this afternoon.
Thank you, and let me share my screen. She says in great hope. So I'm here on behalf of Murray Pruden, who is the Executive Minister of the National Indigenous Circle. And I'm here to talk to you about the National Indigenous Council, the one proposal we're bringing to General Council 44. Part of the wider church's reorganization meant that the closure of all the conferences and the remaking of the church into regions had drastic impacts on the Indigenous church. And it has been hard on many of the Indigenous United Churches. Now, since the change, we have been given the powers and responsibilities of a region. However, we've not given up on the idea of a much larger vision for the Indigenous church. Based on grassroots discussion and discernment, the National Indigenous Council believes it's time for us to move toward a different relationship with the United Church. It's time to set aside the idea of missions to the Indians and move towards being partners in God's call to the earth. We need to journey together while allowing one another to be who we are. If you look behind me, you'll see the two-row wampum with its two straight lines, symbolizing two bodies traveling together, never crossing over into each other's lane, but paddling side by side. And we believe that's what it's time for the United Church and the Indigenous Church to do together, the United Church with all its complexity and the National Indigenous Church with similar complexity. There are over 600 nations, Indigenous nations in Canada. It is a profound juggling act to try and represent the breadth of the Indigenous community within our Indigenous churches. Our proposal is this. We would like the General Council to ask that the General Secretary identify and remove all the structural barriers to developing and sustaining a self-determining Indigenous church within the United Church of Canada. We've also asked that the conversation of restructuring, right relationships, and reparations continue between the National Indigenous Circle and the wider United Church. We believe in the saying all my relations, meaning that we can walk with the Creator in a good way and support one another in church, faith, and spirituality. Romans 12:16 says, be in harmony with one another. Don't have a high opinion of yourselves, but be in agreement with common people. Do not give yourselves an air of wisdom. What we hope for is an opportunity for the settler and the Indigenous churches to work together to create a stronger church together. Thank you. And I'll take questions if there are any questions or things that people need clarification on with regards to our proposal.
Well, folks, I wonder, are there questions for Teresa on the proposal that's going to GC 44? Maybe you could put up your hand, and Dale, I'll ask you to keep an eye on that if you would, if there's questions for Teresa.
I will. David Leighton Brown has a question.
David, if you could unmute yourself and let us know where you're from.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm the past president of Shining Waters Regional Council, and I'm from Richmond Hill United Church.
Hi, David.
The proposal itself calls on the General Secretary to identify and remove barriers. It is often difficult for someone who is not encountering barriers to identify them. I assume, but my question is, am I correct in assuming that the National Indigenous Church is prepared to contribute to the General Secretary's identification? And if so, do you have a list? Do you envisage a process? And how would that communication proceed?
We definitely are in contact with the General Secretary. Both the General Secretary and the moderator have been quite involved even in the development of our proposal. You'll note that the General Secretary has a companion proposal that he has put forward to try and clear some of the paths. The remit process is a very awkward one. It's one that is required because we were formed as the United Church under a legislative act, but it is quite contrary to how Indigenous church community functions. The idea of the circle doesn't fit well into a hierarchy. And, you know, we've joked about trying to fit a circle into a square. That's kind of the reality of the Indigenous church in the National Church. We are quite happy to continue with this. Even discussing the notion of the term mission is a big one that we're working with the General Secretary on. And that will require revisions to the basis of union, the manual, pretty much everything. I mean, think about it. Our main funding body is called Mission and Service. So that'll be a big piece of work. But yes, we are absolutely willing to and ready to continue the work with the General Secretary and the GCO. Thanks for asking.
Next question is from Barbara White.
Barbara.
Hello,
Holly.
Barbara.
Hi, it's
Know where
been
you're
many,
from,
many
Barbara.
years. Sorry, Betty Lou?
Let us know where you're from.
Oh, from St. Mark's in Scarborough.
Thank you.
And it is wonderful to see Teresa. And I think what I wanted to ask about, you have addressed. I just thought it would be helpful for people to hear what some of the structural barriers are. Like, it wasn't clear in your presentation. So you've given us the idea about the circle in a hierarchy and you know, certainly issues around colonial mentality. This is huge. You're giving us an opportunity as dominant culture people, which I am, to really get to the bottom of it and heal. And for that, I'm very grateful. But could you give us another example of a barrier?
Sure. Often when we have committee work happening, we'll be asked to provide a person to go on a committee. That's really counter to how Indigenous community usually functions. We usually work at least in pairs. People don't have the same confidence of speaking as a sole voice on behalf of a whole other group of people. And so we often encourage, and we're trying to encourage the GCO when they set up their committees to actually ask two Indigenous people to work together. Another example is the role of elders. Elders are extremely significant in our communities, but there's no real place in the General Council way of organization for elders. And so what the General Council Executive has been doing is inviting two elders to come and sit with us each time the General Council Executive meets. We would like to work to try and harmonize the two systems. And that takes time, and that'll take energy, and it'll eventually take changes to the manual.
Thank you.
Even the manual, yeah, even the manual, I mean, think about it. We are, as Christians and as United Church people of the book. But Indigenous communities are orally based. So it's very foreign to have all our ways of being church together described in a book.
Thank you.
So Audrey Brown has her hand up, and there was also a request in the chat, Teresa, if you could share your slides, if that was possible.
Yes, I've already shared them with Shirley, and she can share them with whoever.
Thanks, Teresa. Audrey, if you could just let us know where you're from.
Audrey Brown, Canadian Armed Forces Chaplain, Denison Armory. Teresa, I'm quite out of the loop, and I had signed up for the restructuring, in the Indigenous restructuring presentation that was made, and then regrettably was not able to make it. Does this come from that?
It does, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to harmonize the message as much as we can.
Okay, so this proposal then is like it's working in conjunction with that to say so I assume there's some restructuring that will enable them to continue to work until we get the barriers and structures in place. Is that kind of where we're at? I feel like
Yes,
I feel like I missed something somewhere. So I'm going to ask the stupid questions.
No, that's fine. You know, actually the General Council Executive, and I feel odd because I've got a foot in both camps here, and the General Secretary and the moderator have been very helpful and have worked hard to try and make it work for us, and that's beneficial. The one thing I'll mention, Audrey, is that that event might have been recorded, and I'll check on that and get back to you.
Oh, okay, so it may be, if I'll go on the general council site, I might be.
Yeah, I don't know if it's there, but if not, I'll
Okay.
check this with Murray to see if it's available.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm not seeing any further hands up, Betty Lou.
Okay, thank you, Dale. We'll just give us a few seconds here just to see if folks do. It's a very important proposal. I'm so happy to see it come from the Indigenous Church to the secretary, or to the general secretary, yes, and to the moderator. And I'm glad to hear that they've been working with them as they've been developing and also the sister proposal. So that's wonderful.
Just to that, Betty Lou, we were actually shocked when we saw the general secretary's proposal. We had no idea that he was thinking about how to push forward our hope, our dream, in such a drastic way. And to his concept of having a preemptive remit, well, that's a brand new animal in the United Church. We don't do preemptive remits usually, but what he's saying is, let's clear the path, let's clear the settler way of doing things out of the way so that the Indigenous Church can form organically in the way that they have been forming. And that's a pretty huge vote of support, and we're very thankful for that.
There's a comment from Nikki in the chat that's sort of a question. Some early Christians seem to be less tied to the books.
Indeed.
And Sungran Kim has her hand up.
Sunrun, I'll ask you to unmute yourself and let us know where you're from, please.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I come from Countryside United Church, and then I have a clarification question to Teresa. Yeah, if I would like to participate in that circle you presented with our Indigenous siblings, is there any way to participate in that circle, even though I'm not the Indigenous identity? I don't have any kinds of Indigenous identity. Is there any way to participate in that circle?
Only insofar as we are encouraging people in the settler church to be involved in reconciliation and reparations work with us. This is a very fragile time in the Indigenous church. We're working hard to figure out what dual belonging actually means. The way the United Church is structured, Indigenous churches, pretty much all our congregations are on reserves. There are a few in the city, and city ministries are just starting to grow. But we're trying to figure out how it is we have Indigenous Christians in settler churches and how we can feed them in to the Indigenous church. So it's very early days, but who knows what's coming? Who knows?
Mary also had a question in the chat. She's asking, where does one find an Indigenous church or a congregation?
Well, you can actually use Church Locator to do it. You do have two in Shining Waters. One is Georgina Island, and the other is Christian Island. Those are probably the closest ones to you. In the Indigenous side of things, you also have Grandma, a First Nation, and their community spiritual center. I'm trying to think. I think that's all that's in the.
And there's also Urban Native Ministries downtown.
Oh, right. How could I forget that? And the
Yeah.
Toronto Urban Native Ministry in downtown Toronto. Yeah, I think that's all of them in this area. Yeah.
It looks like we have no more questions.
Well, look at that.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for taking your time today. on this beautiful Saturday afternoon to come and share with us on this important proposal. Again, blessings to your ministry, blessings to this work that's ahead of you, and Chief Miigwech.
Chief Miigwech to you too, now, and thank you. It's been nice to see everybody in the old Toronto conference again. So bye now.
Bye-bye. Folks, we're going to take a 15-minute all-purpose break, and let me look at my clock. I have 10 to 1, so why don't we come back at 5 after 1, folks, and we'll come back with music, so listen for that on your computer. Enjoy your break, and we'll see you soon.
Restless weaver ever spinning threads of justice and shalom, dreaming patterns of creation where all creatures find a home, gathering up life's varied fibers, every texture, every hue. Grant us your creative vision, with us weave your world anew. Where its fragile web is raveling, help us mend each broken strand. Bless our urgent, bold endeavors, cleansing water, air, and land. Through the Spirit's inspiration, offering health where once was pain, strengthen us to be the stewards of your world knit all again. When our violent lust for power ends in lives abused and torn, from compassion's sturdy fabric, passion, hope, and trust reborn. Where injustice rules as tyrant, give us courage, God, to dare live our dreams of transformation, make our lives incarnate prayer. Restless weaver still conceiving, new life, love, and yet to be, binding all your vast creation in one living tapestry. You have called us to be weavers, let your love guide all we do. With your reign of peace our pattern, we will weave your world anew.
And welcome back.
Sorry, we're just having a little technical difficulty with the breakout rooms.
Can folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I just want folks to know that we're a little bit ahead in our agenda again this afternoon. So that's not a bad thing for Saturday afternoon. So we're going to see if nominations would be ready. We're just not sure we have all our panelists on site yet. So I'm just wondering if nominations, David, if you would be willing to, you and Tina would be willing to do nominations presentation now.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
All right, then, if I can proceed, I am pleased to present on behalf of the Nominations Committee the report found in the resource book and on the website. We have one motion for the council today to elect those listed in the report to their positions on the executive, on commissions, and on committees. The Nominations Committee wishes to offer thanks to Gloria Tozek, who is completing her term as chair of the Communities of Faith Commission. We are most grateful for her leadership in this role. And we are pleased to present Tina Conlon as a candidate for president-elect. Tina will serve 1 year as president-elect, 2 years as president, and 1 final year as past president. We have invited Tina to say a few words about her vision for her time in this role.
Tina, I see you've unmuted yourself and you've got your camera on, and thank you for being able to do this a little bit sooner than you had anticipated. So I welcome you.
Thank you. As I said to David and the other people in the nominations committee, I was very grateful for being seen in this role, and I was hoping to get the kind of support that I need to proceed with this role. As I mentioned, the vision and mission as outlined in the web of the Shining Waters Regional Council and encouraging and connecting communities of faith is something that I think we should continue, together with recognizing the deep spirituality, the bold discipleship, and the daring justice that we see in our church. I also would like to say that in our role, in a vision, I'd like us to search for those walls, those barriers, and those borders that deny that we need each other. We should look for the vines that can bridge our gaps, as we read from Rumi earlier. Our task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. I think I will end it from there, because there's a lot more to say, and there's a lot of very good things that have already been said, and it's found in the website for the goals and vision of the region.
Well, thank you, Tina, and thank you. And we're so grateful for your willingness to serve Shining Waters Regional Council in this capacity. The report of the nominations committee has been presented. We'll consider the motion to elect those names in the report. If you have questions or comments, please raise your hand in the participants list. There will be 90-second limit for each speaker, and there will be an opportunity for a final 60-second comment by David. And so I'll ask Dale to keep a track of that. And are there any questions to this motion that David has put onto the floor?
Any hands raised, Betty Lou, at this point?
Okay, thank you, Dale.
Sorry, Hewitt Holmes has his hand up.
Hewitt, okay. Hewitt, can I invite you to just say where you're from, Hewitt, and unmute yourself?
Thank you very much. Hewitt Holmes, Collier Street United Church, Barrie, Ontario. Thanks, President. And just a question, how is the work of intercultural, interracial coming on in the implementation on committees or commissions?
I'm not sure if that's a nominations question or something more broadly to the executive or others. But let me just say that following our last annual meeting of Shining Waters Regional Council, at which a proposal was passed to create an intercultural diversity commission. The executive complied with that proposal by approving the policy to create an intercultural diversity commission. The nominations committee was asked to wait while the initial members of that commission mapped out their vision and mandate before we added additional names to the Intercultural Diversity Commission in the spirit of the question that was just put. It's only within the last couple of months that we have received the request from the Intercultural Diversity Commission to add further members, and you will see that there are nominations included in the nominations report before you. So I guess that's the long answer. The short answer is that we have proceeded with all deliberate speed to ensure that we are acting in compliance with the expressed wish of this regional council to do the work that this question addresses. And the responsibility for that work lies primarily, but obviously not exclusively, with the Intercultural Diversity Commission. I hope that addresses your question. If not, please focus me in a different way.
Thanks, David. Are there other questions? Oh, there's Hewitt. Go ahead, Hewitt.
Just a follow-up. The direct question is perhaps how many of the people on the different commissions and committees of our region are interracial?
And that's a question that off the top of my head, I cannot give an answer to. It is certainly the case that the nominations committee seeks racialized and other diverse candidates. Let me remind everyone of the process that occurs. We publicize to all communities of faith and to all lay and ministry members of the regional council a call for nominations. And the nominations committee also extends invitations to people that it considers suitable for one role or another. In the invitations that the nominations committee extends, it is very conscious of the desire for diversity in the composition of the various parts of our structure. There are sometimes other considerations, particular skills and expertise, geographic distribution throughout our region, and so on. But the question of seeking racialized and other candidates that respond to our regional priority of equity is among our top priorities. Not all of those to whom we extend invitations agree to those invitations. And so the final report does not map perfectly with our our hopes and aspirations, but it is an ongoing work.
Was that helpful, Hewitt?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mary
there-
has a question. President Mary has a question in the chat. Would diversity be pivotal on geography?
The question implies a choice between two prospective candidates, and we have never actually faced that kind of a choice. We have typically, in looking at an individual body like a commission, we typically have more than one vacancy, and we typically look for candidates to fill those vacancies that have diversity qualifications, that have geographical qualifications, that have skill and expertise qualifications, and conceivably other needs of a particular nomination. We have, in my time, not faced the situation that the question Mary is asking really addresses. And so it would be a hypothetical.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, if there are no more questions, David, did you want to offer any concluding comment or?
No, just an expression of gratitude to those who have been willing to allow their names to be put forward for these leadership positions in our region. We are grateful in advance for the work that they are prepared to do on our behalf. And so I am delighted to put the motion for a vote now. Thank you.
Okay. Moved by David Leighton Brown and seconded by Stephen Lowith that Shining Waters Regional Council elect those listed in the nominations report to serve on the Shining Waters Regional Council Executive Commissions and Committees of Shining Waters Regional Council for the stated terms. You have heard the motion before you. If you wish to vote yes, please raise your hand now. And for participants on the phone, please use *9. And if there are multiple users sharing your computer, please type your vote in the chat to Kim.
Okay, I think those yes votes have been counted.
Thank you, Dale. If you wish to vote no, please raise your hand now.
Those votes have been counted.
Thank you, Dale. If you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now.
And those votes have been counted. The result of the vote is 102 yes, 1 no, 4 abstention.
The motion is carried. Thanks to the nominations committee for their work, and thanks to everyone who has volunteered and will be offering leadership into the region the next year and into their next terms of that have been stated. Thank you so very much. Okay, we're going to shift again a little bit. We're waiting for our presenters is what we're waiting on. We're still waiting for one more to join us. So we're going to go to our General Council news and updates with Dave Jagger. I think there's a video for that.
It's our stewardship update.
Stewardship update, sorry.
That's okay. That's very similar. Yeah.
Okay. So we have some helpful updates to share from the wider church. First is a video prepared by Dave Jagger from the Philanthropy Unit with an invitation to journey with stewardship.
Hi, I'm Dave Jagger. I'm a minister and part of the philanthropy unit at the General Council offices. And I know many of you expect me to show up with some kind of gag or goofy joke or something silly, but today I just want to say, I hear you. As I've listened to many church leaders across the country, you have told me again and again that stewardship is something they just didn't teach you about in school. You'd love to do better stewardship, and not just to increase the cash flow of the congregation, but to nurture generous disciples and do more ministry. Help, just tell me what to do, you say. Well, I hear you. That's why I want to invite you to be part of the Stewardship Best Practices module of the Called to be the Church, the Journey program. How to talk about money without guilt or shame. What is stewardship really all about then? And 3 key principles for your stewardship work. And a customized stewardship analysis report about your community of faith, so you can make good plans to take the next steps forward that you need to take to get results. Not some out-of-the-can ideas that are supposed to be one-size-fits-all. Better yet, when you implement your next steps plan, we'll walk with you to provide encouragement, support, and accountability so that you will get results, as people realize stewardship is really about unleashing God's gifts to make a difference in your community and beyond. So please, check out the Call to be the Church, the Journey website, or better yet, give our team a call or email us for more information. It's your journey and your calling. That's right. It's your journey and your calling. We will teach you the best practices to unleash God's gifts to make a difference in your community and beyond. The next cohorts of the Stewardship Best Practices module will run for 4 weeks, starting the week of October the 24th this fall. But don't wait. Now is the time to start gathering your learning team and getting ready. Find out more at the Called to be the Church, the Journey website, www.united-church.ca/stewardship. And if you're thinking about doing a congregational giving program this fall, please do it. If the fall is too soon, or that's too big a step, well, plan for 2023. In January of 2023, we're offering the Congregational Giving Program module to help you get set up and be successful. In the meantime, everything you need is on the website. Look for the Congregational Giving Program module, Do It Yourself link. And I'm here to help you with your questions. Now, today I'm excited to tell you, even throughout the isolation of the pandemic, you have been together. It is with immense gratitude for the generosity of the people of the United Church that we recognize an increase in mission and service support in 2021. Yay! In 2021, communities of faith, UCWs, families, and individuals gave a total of $20.2 million, which is an increase from the $19.6 million given in 2020. That does our shared denominational work, both in Canada and abroad. Thank you. Together, through mission and service, you help to transform lives. Your region is helping to transform lives by sharing mission and service grant money with these agencies: the Michael Garron Hospital Chaplaincy, the Mount Sinai Hospital Chaplaincy, the Muskoka Chaplaincy Association, the Journey Neighborhood Center, Anglican United Refugee, the Davenport Perth Community Ministry, the Fred Victor Center, Jane Finch Community Ministry, and the work of your regional council. Together, through mission and service, you are inspiring meaning and purpose by sharing mission and service money with these partners: the University of Toronto Ecumenical Chaplaincy, the Massey Center for Women, and the work of your regional council. And together through mission and service, you are working to build a better world. I'm excited to tell you, woohoo! Since the pandemic struck, people have been generous and given over $500,000 in emergency gifts to support mission and service partners to deliver personal protective equipment, to distribute food, to install sanitation stations, and to support educational programs. In addition, people have generously provided over 8,360 full vaccinations to those who need them most around the world. Altogether, that's over $750,000 in COVID relief. You are amazing. Thank you. Now, it's unfortunate, but I am also excited to tell you that there are now opportunities for you to support the people of Ukraine through the Gifts with Vision program. $25 will provide one hygiene package. $38 will provide one food basket. $40 will provide one hygiene package plus a supply of incontinence products for those who need them. You can give as many of these gifts as you are able on the Gifts with Vision website, www.giftswithvision.ca. Please, I invite you, be generous. Thank you. And I mean that. Thank you. Now, at the beginning of this, it said we would talk about stewardship, mission and service, and beyond. Well, now it's time for beyond. The United Church of Canada Foundation. You may be wondering, what exactly does the United Church Foundation do? What grants are available? They have grants? Cool. When do I apply and how? Who has already received grants and for what? How do I make a planned gift to leave a legacy? And how can my community of faith invest its resources? Well, the United Church Foundation website can answer these questions and more. Check it out, www.unitedchurchfoundation.ca. Or give us a call. We have staff to answer your questions and to help you build a sustainable future. So please contact us. And the best way to stay up to date and get all the hot off the press stewardship, mission and service information that you need and beyond is to subscribe today to our free monthly e-newsletter, God's Mission, Our Gifts. Just go to the United Church website, united-church.ca, and type e-newsletters or God's Mission, Our Gift or subscriptions into the search box, and any one of those will take you to the page you need to go to. Look for God's Mission, Our Gifts, and click to subscribe. And if all else fails, call me. I am here to help. Thanks for listening today. And thanks for all you do to unleash God's gifts to make a difference in your community and beyond. You really are quite wonderful. Thank you.
Great presentation, Dave. Thanks. We appreciate that very, very much. And again, thank you, Dave. At this time, I'm going to invite Sarah Law from the Then Let Us Sing project to share with us. Sarah, I believe that you're here. I checked with the tech crew. Sarah, can you unmute yourself and turn on your video so they can find you?
Actually, Betty Lou, Sarah's going to speak after the video to respond to any questions. So I'll share the video first.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Susie. My apologies.
No worries.
Hello, welcome. In 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you about Then Let Us Sing. Then Let Us Sing is a completely digital music and singing resource for the entire church that will make all of the United Church of Canada's existing hymn resource collections, as well as a curated collection of new material available in one digital location under one copyright license for less than you're currently paying for your copyright licensing fees. It's amazing. To do this, we are thrilled to be working in partnership with both GIA and Hope Publications, GIA Publications and Hope Publishing House. We are also working with our full communion partners, the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, and the United Church of Christ in the United States. Our development team is diverse and ecumenical. We have people from our full communion partnerships, as well as people from the Anglican Church of Canada and the Presbyterian Church in Canada. We also have on our development team 4 active subcommittees. These active subcommittees have subcommittees of their own as well. We have marketing, animation, and fundraising, which is chaired by Paul Sales. We have education, justice, and ethos, which is chaired by Catherine Faith McLean. We have material creations, chaired by Marin McLean Prasad, and the editorial team, which is chaired by Lloyd McLean. Lloyd McLean is also the chair of the entire development committee. We know that investing in the singing life of the church is an investment in the formation of bold discipleship. We know how important and vital this ministry is, and we are delighted to be in ministry together on this project. Some dates to look out for. In 2023, a sampler will be coming out that we would like to be in dialogue with you, with the wider church in. Please be ready for it. Also, just note that the Hymn Society will be in Montreal in 2023, and we hope to be there as well. In 2024, the Then Let Us Sing digital platform will be live, which gives us a solid year to learn new songs so that when 2025 comes and we're celebrating the church's 100th year, we can sing together these new songs. In 2025, a print book will also be made available. We are so excited to sing into the next century together. Please, please join us.
I don't think Sarah's in the meeting at the moment, Betty Lou, so maybe if folks have questions, they can put them in the chat and she can answer them later. She was expecting the presentation to be later on in the day, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So folks, if you have any questions about the new supplement, the music supplement that we're going to receive, put it in the chat and chat about it. Ask some questions of Sarah, and she can take it to the committees that she's part of.
And she'll be joining us later, so she could answer the questions then too.
I'm going to ask the question because I didn't ask this one yet. Is Rebecca Hornberg in the house on the floor? Rebecca is the manager of the United Church Bookstore.
No, I don't see her on the list.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for her then. I'm wondering, let's take another break, folks, as we figure out what we want to do with the agenda and move things around a little bit. We have 2 things that we need to still, a couple of little things, but a couple of large things. So our panelists and of course our finance budget. So let's take a break. Let's take a 15-minute break. We'll take our break early. It is 1:39, so 20 to 2. Let's come back at 15 minutes, okay? And so we'll see you at 5:02, and that should just about put us on with, just to put us a little bit behind for the panelists, okay? And hopefully they'll all be here by then. Thanks, folks, and enjoy your break.
You're muted, Betty Lou.
Thanks and welcome back, folks. I love that song. It's one of my favorites. I always enjoy singing it with my congregation. As a part of the theme reflection, we wanted to hear from some local ministries within our region of Shining Waters that are engaged in the work for the common good. And I'm pleased to welcome our panelists, and I invite them to unmute themselves and turn on their cameras. Michelle Singh is the Executive Director of Faith and the Common Good. Brandon Stiles is the Environmental Development Manager for the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. Alexa Gilmore is the National Director of Stone Soup Network. And Ted Reeve is the Minister at St. Paul's United Church in Aurelia. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We will hear from each of our panelists about their particular context, and after we will have an opportunity to go out into breakout rooms. Now, each panelist will have a breakout room, so if you are interested in learning more about perhaps like Michelle's, you just have to go into Michelle's breakout room, and we'll get some direction on how to do that as we get closer after the panelists present. So we're going to start with Michelle, if we could.
Thank you.
So I invite Michelle to share with us.
Thank you, Betty Lou, and good afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege to be joining you today. Going to share my screen. First, again, thank you. I've been in this meeting since it started this morning. I was very moved by Nikki's offering and really appreciated hearing about all the various aspects that's been spoken about this morning, or this afternoon for that matter. I just want to acknowledge before I get into my presentation that I am in Toronto today on the land of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Today, I'm going to be speaking a bit about the Faithful Footprints program. Faith and the Common Good is the delivery partner for this United Church program. We've had very active participation from Shining Waters region, so I suspect that many of you are very familiar with the program. I'm just going to take a few minutes. Oh, and I meant to turn my timer on. I'm just going to take a few minutes to share a bit at a very high level about the program. And then if you want to join me in the breakout room, we can get into more details. You might remember that in 2016, the United Church General Council commissioned a report called Caring for Creation, Our Communities and Our Congregations, the case for a national carbon reduction program for faith buildings. Well, out of that, the Faithful Footprints program was born. It really is the beginning of implementing those learnings to move the church into a leadership position in building energy efficiency and climate action. The energy used to light and heat faith buildings is one of the largest carbon contributors and also one of the church's biggest expenses. So regular reporting, including national sustainability reports to track progress, amplify the stories of congregations, uncover barriers, and connect the dots with other creation care actions are all part of the Faithful Footprints program. You will see that these, at the time that the program was initiated, these are the 6 key goals of the Faithful Footprints program. To reduce emissions 80% by 2050, to engage 500 United Church congregations by 2025. Now that says congregations, and we have expanded beyond congregations in that we're working with camps and other United Church properties. We've established a national grant program that reduces the financial barriers to building energy efficiency work. We've established regional support centers nationwide. I'll talk a bit more about all of these. And we've been working with the Climate Advisory Circle, the General Counsel Office, and a number of other divisions within the United Church to create seamless and interconnected deliverables for this program. And again, I mentioned the regular reporting. I'm sure that many of you are probably familiar with the sustainability report, that the 2019 to 2020 sustainability report that came out towards the end of 2020. In terms of the grants that are available, they are available to any United Church congregation, camp, or outreach ministry. It gives you access to up to $20,000 in energy efficiency grant money. Okay, and there are a few examples there of the types of things that congregations and camps have been doing: insulation, air sealing, converting lights has been is sort of the low-hanging fruit. Most people can, most congregations can do that work fairly quickly. Upgrading of windows, replacement of appliances, etc. Also, there's an additional $10,000 available for decarbonization. Moving the congregation from a carbon-based heating system to an Energy Star high efficiency electric system for space heating or water heating. I wanted to show you a bit overall of the national stats as of a couple of days ago. You can see the number of total applications nationally, as well as within Shining Waters, and the various stages that applications are in. The other thing I wanted to highlight for you are the grants map and the energy data maps that are available. We created those in partnership with Edge, who did brilliant work putting those maps together. When I can figure out how to do it, I will put those links in the chat box so that you can have a look at them. And if I have enough time in my presentation here, I may just click on them. Just to give you a bit of a high level idea of the kinds of impact the grant is having at a couple of congregations within the region. Manor United reduced their emissions by 11.5%, reduced their natural gas usage by 11.9%, and reduced their energy costs by 8.8%. Leaside United had reduced their emissions by 51.8%, natural gas usage by 52.9%, and reduced their energy costs by 8.3%. I want to be upfront and say that these numbers are slightly skewed because, as you well know, we have been in a pandemic for the past couple of years. So we expect that as time goes on and we continue to look at the data that is coming forward, that those numbers will, what's the word I'm looking for? It's gone completely out of my mind. That those numbers will level out against the baseline reports that we initially produced. These are just examples of the kinds of work that was also done at a couple of churches in the region. What it takes to prepare the walls for installation. As I mentioned earlier, installing LED lights is one of the most popular initiatives. And then finally, I wanted to just talk a little bit about all the communications tools that are available. One of the things when we met with regional managers and regional ministers and executive ministers, one of the key learnings was that more communication was necessary for a number of things. So since then, in the last couple of years, we have a monthly blog. You can go to the faithfulfootprints.org website to sign up for it, and it will keep you up to date on what's happening. We have a monthly newsletter. We're getting more and more regional and national press, continuing to work towards the goal of having the church be recognized as a leader in sustainability, particularly around emissions reduction. We have a number of YouTube videos that feature various congregations and camps. And once again, the sustainability report. We will be producing a new sustainability report towards the end of this year. And we invite you to follow Faithful Footprints on social media, Twitter and Facebook. The last comment I would like to make is just in the interest of time is that I just wanted to focus on some of the hard stats that we've been able, the hard impacts we've been able to make with this program. Another large piece of it is around working with the Climate Advisory Circle around some of the social justice issues as related to the climate environment. And there will be more information forthcoming about that in the near future.
Thank you, Michelle. That's great. Great presentation and very informative. And so folks, if what Michelle has been saying interests you, you can think about joining her breakout room when the time comes. I'm going to invite Brandon to speak next. If you would, Brandon, please.
Bonjour, Anin. Wasa bacha badmin and Dishnakaz. Chimnising a shon young meanwam and jickening and dunjaba. Chipwa Anishinaabe and Dow Makwa and Dodem. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brandon Stiles, and I come from the Chippewas of Georgina Island and Rama First Nations. I am from the Bear Clan family, and I'm Chippewa Anishinaabe, and very happy to be here today. I'd like to start off by saying Chimigwach for the invitation and opportunity to share an environmental update with your council. And I'd also like to just also send a special wish out to Betty Lou on her retirement from the Chippewas of Georgina Island United Church. I wish you very well, Betty Lou, and I know that you will be dearly missed in the community. So just wanted to take a moment to say that. In terms of an environmental update, I have quite a bit to tell you, but I'm also going to be sharing in the breakout room, if possible, a video. But what I wanted to ask is it possible for me to send a link to one of you to put it up onto the screen for me, if possible?
Yes, yep, you can send a link.
So yeah, just to continue on, the environmental department delivers a number of programs and services that protect, restore and conserve Georgina Island's environment, which in turn obviously is a benefit to Ashunyang or Lake Simcoe. So this is done with funding from the provincial and federal governments, and the programs and services that we deliver were developed to address the island's unique ecosystem. And so I'm just going to quickly go through some of these services, but you're going to hear a little bit more in detail of the services in the video. So we do provide waste management services in the community, which is weekly curbside waste, and we operate a landfill on the island as well. We have energy conservation programs where we look at bringing down our energy consumption and different ways to generate energy in the community and opportunities to generate green energy in the community as well. We also do forest management, where we look after and do an inventory of some of our trees, especially endangered ones and some invasive ones, and we keep a management of that as well. We have a species at risk program, which is hand in hand with the forest program, but that is all about looking after some of our native species that are currently on the decline. We have the invasive species management program. So our island, and I'm sure you've heard of in most of the area, has a number of different invasive species that we have to deal with, such as Phragmites, wild parsnip. And we also do some climate change planning and adaptation in the community, just so that way we're prepared for some of the changes that we're seeing with the climate and some of the patterns. We also do a number of land-based learning programs, such as we work with Wabgun School to deliver a number of different programs where they will grow lake trout in the school and have a release. We also have set up a greenhouse at the Wabgun School where our students in the community learn how to grow our traditional medicines and plant them in different areas around the island as well, so we can have access to our traditional medicines again. And we also do a number of different initiatives that clean up the area, such as an Earth Day cleanup or our shoreline cleanup that we've started as well. We usually do that around September, where we choose 5 beaches and go along the shorelines from those beaches to try our best to clean it all up and keep our island as pristine as possible. And so that is just some of the initiatives that we do in the department. And of course, another role I hold at Georgina Island is to coordinate the opposition that Georgina Island has to the Upper York sewage solutions. So a quick update with that. The Upper York sewage solutions is currently still on hold, and they've struck a panel to have a look at wastewater solutions in regards to population growth and how that'll all be accommodated in the area, and have reached out to Georgina Island and will be working with us on what those discussions, whether those discussions include the Upper York sewage solutions. They do, and you know, what's being considered in terms of that, because our community has made it clear that our position is we do not want the sewage plant in Lake Simcoe. It's illegal as per the Lake Simcoe protection plan, and a number of different reasons. But yeah, so that's an update. It still is on hold, and we continue to oppose, and we'll fight for the health of Shenyang or Lake Simcoe as long as we have to. So that is my very quick update. But like I said, I will send the link for the video, and I'm going to be happy to show the video. But before I go, I actually wanted to also mention Vicky Walski, who was planning to join me on this talk today, but unfortunately she is on the island and having some technical issues. So, and I know how that is. So she was unable to connect, but Vicky actually coordinated a very exciting project last year called the Shining Water Paddle. And I just wanted to share a little bit about this. Vicky led a team of 6 paddlers and 3 canoes, and they were all community members from Georgina Island around Lake Simcoe, and stopped at several different stopping places. And she prayed and blessed the water and had water ceremonies at a number of different stops as well. And a lot of this was to bring awareness to Lake Simcoe and how we have to love and care for her, as well as give an opportunity to some of the youth who participated in the paddle to learn some of our customs and traditions around caring for and praying for the water. So a very exciting project that Vicky led, and this was done last summer, 2021, I believe 2 weeks in August is when it happened. So anyhow, that is my update from Chippewas of Georgina Island. And like I said, I am excited to show you the video. The video is a project that we worked on through our energy department, and it basically just talks about what we're doing in the energy department, talks about some of our projects, as well as in particular our projects in regards to energy conservation and generating energy in our community as well. So looking forward to that, and I will send the link right away. But that's all I have to say for now. Miigwech.
Oh, miigwech, Brandon, miigwech. I was there the day that Vicky and everyone set out in their canoes. It was an exciting time, and then to see them gone for the couple of weeks, it was like everyone was keeping updates on when they'd be back. So it was exciting. That was good work. Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm going to invite Alexa to speak next on Stone Soup.
Thank you so much, Madam President Betty Lou, and thank you to the body here for inviting me to come and be with you. It is always a pleasure and an honor to be with each one of you. And I was saying earlier, I just wish that we could be visiting in between in the hallways and catching up. But this is an incredible way to be together, and I'm grateful for it. So Stone Soup Network is a ministry in Bloor West, Toronto. It is now a ministry in Ottawa, in the Carlington area. And by the end of the year, we hope it will be a ministry in at least 3 other neighborhoods. So I'm hoping some of you on this call are listening and maybe hearing the pull of the Spirit to connect with me about whether the Stone Soup Network model is the right one for your neighborhood, and whether God might be calling you to explore it, because it's been quite an amazing gift to many people in our community. So the Stone Soup Network is incubated out of Windermere United Church. It's a ministry of the church there. The vision of the Stone Soup Network is, here, I have to move something so I can see it. The vision is to create communal tables where gifts are shared and lives are valued within a just, equitable, sustainable community. So there's the levels of that within the community, caring for the community, caring for the individuals, sense of belonging, combating isolation, meeting both the spiritual and the material needs of people. And our mission is to generate grassroots solutions rather than top-down solutions to local challenges through the building of relationships. Relationships take time, they take trust, and they take a sense of purpose in order to do that. So Stone Soup Network was actually started about 6 years ago, when the church began to ask local businesses if they might be interested in sharing from their abundance with people in need. Would a restaurant owner be willing to give dinner for 4 to a single parent who just graduated from high school at the age of 30 and hadn't been out for dinner in over 10 years? Would a dance school give dance lessons to a young child who was not going to be able to come participate like the other kids without the extra support of a free program? And overwhelmingly, we heard from the businesses that yes, not only yes, but thank you, they said. They said they were looking for ways to participate in their community and to believe that their gifts and that what they offered mattered. And so we discovered that there is this intrinsic need in us to give and to be told that what we have to give matters, and that we were doing that for our neighbors as a church community through the Stone Soup Network. And then we ended up with so many wonderful offerings that we were able to share with the common good, level the playing field, that we had to do 2 things. We had to build ourselves a database. We had to build ourselves an online store, think Amazon.com, but everything's given away for free. And we had to invite more neighbors to participate in the common good. So we invited our social worker at the public school, the staff at the men's shelter and the women's shelter, the nurse at the 4 Villages Healing Centers, the other religious clergy in the area. And they were given the password to our online store. And when they were working with their people and their clients, they were able to go on, see the gift certificate to the pharmacy and give that to the senior in need, see the daycare spot and give that to the child in need, see the massage and give that to the factory worker that needed a good care for his or her back, see the oil maintenance and give that to the Uber driver in need. And they downloaded the voucher, gave that to their recipient. The recipient went to the store and redeemed it. So now we discovered that these relationships were forming that weren't previously in our neighborhood. People were getting to know each other as they participated in the Stone Soup. The church was getting to know local businesses. Truth be told, we really only knew one business before the Stone Soup started, and that was our funeral home. And many of you might be able to sort of resonate with that. Now we had dozens. The church was getting to know social agencies, and we're starting to get to know resident groups and volunteers, and neighbors were starting to hear about Windermere United's and this program that they had. And as these relationships developed, something quite miraculous started to happen. We were a place where people were coming together to have conversations, and they were starting to share local challenges, local issues, local problems, and networking with each other to find grassroots solutions, some of which we were a part of as Stone Soup, and some of which we weren't a part of, but because we had networked people together, they were now doing on their own. The social agencies who were so siloed from each other, the one that worked in the schools, the one that worked at the healing center, at the education and employment center, didn't know each other, but now knew each other. And we're now starting to think about and dream other ways that we could act for the common good together. And the church was the hub for that bit of work. And so we took a step back and we thought, well, what really is a Stone Soup neighborhood at this point? What does that mean? We grabbed a little focus group and we asked them to think about that. And this is what they said a Stone Soup neighborhood is, right? Inclusive, happiness, integrity, diversity, cooperation, empowerment, advocacy, generosity, solidarity. And it all rested on 3 pillars for us. Well-being. This is something that I think the church is uniquely good at. Maybe not the only one, but very uniquely qualified, because we do look at the whole person. We're not having someone come to us just for employment or just for education. And so we recognize the needs of the whole person and their context. And then Stone Soup Help provides opportunities for connection, for belonging within the community that they're living in. And then we support. So Stone Soup provides opportunities for the volunteers, the contributors, the connectors, the recipients to all come together and share in the work of creating vibrant neighborhoods. So in part that happens through the gift and service matching of businesses with people in need. In part that happens through communities of practice and intentional gatherings. And then, of course, what we discovered was as we were doing this work, people were beginning to ask the questions around justice. And we were able to provide spaces where we could work together on advocacy. And so when the United Church talked about basic income, livable income, we were able to connect with members in our community and bring them together to our MP's office for a conversation. And these kinds of things arose from going out into the neighborhood, building the relationships. I want to talk about the stats because I'm usually a storyteller, but the stats kind of blow my mind every time. So the Windermere Church's Benevolent Fund had about an average of $3,000 a year coming in that the minister could use, usually on food cards. And that's actually pretty good because the average church has about 1,500. So our little church of 45 folks on a Sunday was bringing $3,000 in a year to give out to neighbors in need. But we discovered that it takes more than grocery cards to feed the soul. That when you go to school with kids who get trips to Disneyland and you asked your parents, why didn't Santa bring me what I asked for Christmas? That it tears at the soul and the fabric of the society. And so this idea of increasing the abundance through the toy store, the bookstore, the grocery store, all participating in this, What it did was it took our $3,000 a year and within 1 year increased it to $86,000 in benevolent capacity made available in just one neighborhood. It's a 28-time increase in offering in our community. And this blows my mind because if you think about it, there are 750 United Churches in Ontario. And if they have an average of 1,500 in their benevolent fund a year, and 28 times that is about $1 million, we'd be over $30 million a year in the Ontario area that each one of us running a little Stone Soup network could contribute to. But equally kind of mind-blowing is what happened in the community engagement for the congregation and the Stone Soup program. So as I said, we had sort of one relationship with the funeral home up the street. There's now 25 active businesses, 27 social connectors, all connected to about 8 different agencies. It's 50 new partners. And it ended up being that we ended up doing beyond the matching piece a whole range of initiatives, in particular during the pandemic. So in the pandemic time, we reached out and said, let's start a mutual aid network. And we had 200 community members reach back to us that weren't part of our church that said, we'd like to be part of that. We put on our sign that we had a benevolent fund that was going to feed local people in need during the pandemic. And we got $30,000 that year. Remember, our average was $3,000 in cash. $30,000 came in 2020, mostly from neighbors who never stepped foot into our church, but who knew about us from our community work and said, we want to help local people in need, and Windermere's the place that can do that. And another half of that, though, came also from a grant from an agency that said, we have food and we think Windermere can help us get that food to people in need. $5,000 in gift cards went to 4 local shelters. 16,000 masks were fundraised for when our MPP came to Stone Soup and said, can you help us get masks into the food banks, to the seniors residents, to the people most in need? And so Stone Soup was able to turn around to the community and do a big fundraising campaign, and within 3 days had $13,000 raised. We've been able to partner with Ubuntu Strand on anti-racism initiatives, with others on LGBTQ initiatives. And I think that Stone Soup helps people become an essential service ready in this post-COVID world to provide neighborhood recovery, fighting against isolation. So long as the community is using their ministry resources to go out and foster those relationships that are already built and continue growing the community's relationship. So it's an incredible little story of miracles. And I'm happy to take more questions in the breakout room. There's a great 3-minute video you can watch on our website about like how the actual nuts and bolts of it work, stonesoupnetwork.ca, or come on June 20th for 1 hour online or in person if you're in Toronto. We've got a barn raising. So we're hoping 3 new neighborhoods will come on board. We need to raise the funds to help support them. This hour is about fundraising and awareness building. And some friends of ours from the Come From Away cast are actually doing a musical tribute to Stone Soup. So it should be a lot of fun. And I am just so grateful to be in all of your company and hope that I have sparked some interest and some inspiration for your own congregations. And I'm here for any questions when we go into the breakout room. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexa. Stone Soup Network, what a ministry it has. And lastly, but not leastly, is Ted Reeves. And Ted is the minister at St. Paul's United in Aurelia, and I've been working with Ted a bit on eco-commoning work, and so I know that they have a common space there, and was hoping that he would be able to share with us some of his work on eco-commoning and the common space. So welcome, Ted.
Thank you. And if I can just as well use a PowerPoint to kind of illustrate to move me through some slides quickly. I wanted to begin by offering you appreciation, Betty Lou, for choosing this scripture passage from 1 Corinthians. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit in seeking the common good. This really is warms my heart, because I believe that the common good language, and whether we use it as common good or commoning or eco-commoning, is a spiritual way of enabling a 21st century response to how we might imagine our theology, our kingdom of God, our social gospel understandings in the church. Offer some new language and approaches that are, I think, rejuvenating, and offer the United Church a 21st century way to theologize and work in practical ways to respond to it. I've been working on this for, I don't know, over 30 years, since the 80s, and then joined with Bill Phipps in when he was the moderator, and we together formed Faith in the Common Good, which the common good language was central in working in an interfaith way. And we're excited to see how Michelle and others have carried on Faith in the Common Good. So Bill and I, though, began to use the language of eco-commoning as a 21st century way of understanding a down-to-earth way of life, down-to-earth as in recognizing the importance of our interrelationship with the earth. And so the eco part of it offers this sense of a renewed symbiotic relationship with the earth and each other. Eco being household from the Greek, economics, ecological. How do we manage the household? How are we in relationship? How are we in the divine household? And so it seemed important in the 21st century to give emphasis to that. And commoning, Heather Menzies yesterday so well illustrated kind of the depth of commoning from the Scottish perspective, but it's a way of life and perspective that Indigenous peoples around the world continue to live in this kind of cooperative, fair, and local sustainable ways. And so I think those kind of core values around cooperation and local sustainable understandings are a core part of human organization that is central to who we are. And I think in the 21st century, these times are liminal times. We know and feel that in the church. And we are in a time of dying to many of the things of the last 500 years called modernism, the kind of individualism, and our liberal Protestantism, and our capitalist and colonial culture, and all of the big package of understanding of our Western culture is under pressure and devolving or dying or changing. And I think what is emerging is a more symbiotic or relational way of life. And we're naming it, there's other people are calling it an ecological civilization, different names for this movement that's happening around the world. But I wanted to bring it back to an understanding of our church and how we might reimagine our spiritual lives together, and how the United Church might be part of this kind of using eco-commoning language. And as I reflect on what we do in the church and have done, and what I have been charged as a minister to work on under these categories on the left-hand side, it occurs to me that in many ways they have seemed like a transactional understanding, the language of commerce, and very much we are live in and amidst the culture that uses that kind of language. So imagining worship as service delivery and kind of a consumer relationship of, in my case, me delivering worship and people consuming it or coming. I mean, these are stark definitions or separations. But I've appreciated more as I've worked with the Indigenous people in the community to understand these expressions as celebrations and ceremonies, and we've experimented with that. The idea of pastoral care, it's again transactional in that I'm supposed to deliver pastoral care to those in need. Can we imagine that it's more of a cooperative caring for each other and caring for the planet, a shift in how we understand how we care for each other? The idea of education, again, is it us educating others, me educating people in the congregation, that kind of model of education that is a traditional way of presenting it? Or can we understand it as a learning together, learning commons? How do we learn and develop that? The ideas of outreach, again, it's an us helping others less fortunate. It's this kind of outward pushing, as opposed to thinking in relationship of community engagement. How are we working for the betterment, the common good of the community? And same again with hospitality versus radical hospitality. So we've begun to play with this language and what that means. And at St. Paul's, we've continued to experiment with this language over the last number of years. And so we've had celebrations where we've worked with Indigenous elders in creating ceremonies that reflect both of our spiritual traditions, our respect for the earth and each other. And we have created rituals to support our Call 83 artists that are working on responding to the TRC's call for artists to produce art. Our care for each other, we have shifted to particularly during COVID, we experimented with a phone tree model where we made sure everyone was part of a network, a caring network. In our learning together, Gloria Tozak and I have been building and so working on a learning commons as part of our building, and bringing groups together that are engaged in common good activities throughout the community. And our notions of community engagement has been more about working on policy issues like the guaranteed living income and mental health and long-term care and water issues. So engaging on community well-being as our focus of how we've done that. And we've created a sharing garden that it enables everyone to come and benefit from the food that's grown around the periphery of the church. And then finally, experimenting with notions of radical hospitality. What does that mean in terms of bringing refugees here, and how do we share resources with each other? So I'm excited by using this language as taking many of the things that we already do well in the United Church and putting them in the framework of a 21st century understanding of the commons and the common good and new kind of relational transformative ways of being in the community and for each other. So look forward to exploring that further with anyone who would like to.
Thank you so much, Ted. We appreciate it. Can I get you to stop sharing your screen? There we go. Thank you, Ted, so much. Okay, so you've got to hear the panelists and all the wonderful things that they have shared with us, and so many ministries that are going on and updates and the excitement of it all. I'm going to ask Sue to send us out into our breakout rooms, and we're going to be in those breakout rooms for about 20 minutes. Now, if we go over a little bit, that's okay, but it's going to be around 20 minutes or so. And I guess you go to one of the 4 rooms. One is named Michelle, Brandon, Alexa, or Ted. Is it that simple, Sue?
Yes, it is.
Oh, perfect. So I guess you're going to see that come up, and you choose your room and enjoy your conversations. Okay. Welcome back, folks. I hope that you found that enjoyable and inspiring. And I know there's a little bit of confusion going in, so I apologize for that. And it's good to try new things. And I'm glad we tried that, because overall it looked like it was very successful. I'm going to just have Sue pull up Brandon and Ted and Alexa and Michelle on the screen for us. Well, thank you so much, folks, for your engaging common ministries, your passions for your common ministry. And I hope that in your breakout rooms, you had some good energy and some good conversation. Again, on behalf of Shining Waters Region Council, I want to thank each of you for participating in our panel today. Cheek miigwech, cheek miigwech, cheek miigwech.
Thank you.
Thank you, miigwech.
Folks, we had looked at a video earlier on the new music supplement that we're going to be receiving, Then Let Us Sing. We got to see the video on that, and Sarah Law is now with us. And there were some questions that were in the chat room, so we want to give Sarah a chance to address those. And so welcome, Sarah. It's good to have you. And I think Susie said she sent you them by text. So you have the question? Yep. Okay, great. I'll let you go ahead then, Sarah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Betty Lou. So one of the questions was, how do we ensure that we receive notice of the sampler? Oh, well, there's, like everything, there's a million ways to receive a notification. There will be regular postings on Facebook. There is a Then Let Us Sing group on Facebook. There is also a website where you could sign up to a newsletter. So there will be a regular newsletter. And it's, I think it's thenletussing.ca. And I'm trying to think, and then probably there will be a posting. So if you get notifications of the videos that are posted on YouTube by the United Church, if you subscribe to YouTube, the United Church channel on YouTube, then you'll also get a notification there as well. The second question was, are accompanying videos included? So technically, the videos won't be included, but there will be some YouTube videos that will be, there'll probably be a link to them on YouTube, and that will be available for some of the songs. As time goes on, I'm sure there will be more for more songs, but it also, just however many get done. So there'll be videos on YouTube for them. And we do plan on doing what we did for More Voices, assuming all goes well with COVID and we can travel and see people and do it in person. We'd also like to do see people and do demonstrations of the new music in person. And will the license include printed and live streaming? And yes, it does. So it will include the live streaming of the music, the performance of the music, and the projection of the music in your church if you decide to do that as well. So you can print the music out from the site, and you can perform it and use it in your YouTube or what have you, and all that licensing is included. And let me just see, did somebody else have a question? No, that's something different.
Okay. And I am going to ask that question now. Are there other questions now that Sarah's with us that folks had? If you do, just raise your hand and Dale can let me know. Okay. Well,
We
thank
do
you.
actually, we do have a question from Nina Fulford. Betty Lou.
Okay. Nina, can I get you to turn on your camera and your microphone and just let us know where you're coming
there. Hi, I'm currently serving 3 small churches in Muskoka. So we 2 of them have absolutely no a musician, and the third one sometimes does, but you have to take music with you in some way. So this is very exciting to think about. But what I wondered was, and I missed the video, unfortunately. I was just stepped away from my computer at that point. So I might be asking a question that people already know the answer. But is what we're being offered just music or music with people singing?
It is actually the sheet music.
The sheet music.
The sheet music. So it's actually similar to what's in the hymn book. So, but
so
if I'm
there's no audio or anything.
No, so but if I'm understanding you, you would like audio.
Yeah, you know, I bought the Sing Alleluia CDs, for instance, but we don't actually have the technology to be playing those. And so what I've had to do is record things on a laptop and bring them in, that kind of thing. We're really, and I could see a real need for tapping into stuff that way, so that you just have music to accompany the people in the pews as they sing.
Exactly. And you're not the first region to ask me that question. And I am taking these questions back to the entire committee. And we have people from all the communities across Canada, and we have people from General Council on the committee. So I am bringing these questions back, and that has come up a number of times. It has to do with licensing, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
George Isaac has a question.
George, if you could unmute yourself and let us know where you're from.
Yeah, I'm George Isaac. I'm from Dalston Crown Hill United Church. And I looked up the Let Us Sing. It's letassing.org, by the way, not CA. There are songs on that site, and there are also videos. Can you use those? Are those copyright available to anyone?
Susie has put the let me just go to it, make sure it's the right. Yeah, Susie has put the thenletassing.ca in the chat here of Zoom, and that is the correct site.
Okay. Well, I got letassing.org.
Yeah, so that's another, I don't know what that is, but that's another website. Yeah.
Okay, so does that site have videos in it?
No, it does not. So then let us sing. So the resource has not been released yet. It won't be released until 2024. And when it is released, though, the plan is not to have videos yet, but there might be some videos on YouTube that might accompany some of the new songs.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question in the chat, Sarah, from Stephen Lowith. So in essence, this is to replace one license or CCL1 for us?
Yeah, so they are in negotiations currently with CCLI to include that license with the one license. But this is, yes, it will replace your one license. So it won't really replace your one license. Your one license will give you this. So your one license, your subscription to one license will be discounted once this is released. So there will be a discount to whatever you're paying now. It's still being negotiated between 10 and 15%.
And then there's another question in the chat From Martha Wood, am I understanding correctly then Let Us Sing is a digitized version of Voices United and more voices of sheet music and lyrics of the hymns in those hymn books as more congregations are using screens?
Yes. Now, let me clarify what you're saying there and the lyrics of the hymns. So the lyrics of the hymns, you know how you have, I don't know what it's called. You have two hymn books. You have the one that has just words and you have one that has sheet music. It will not be just words. So that is something that people have asked for, but it's not in the current plan. So it's not in the current plan to just have words that you could, let's say, copy and pull out to a PowerPoint or however you want to use the words, but it will be the sheet music. And I will make a note of that question though, because, you know, the more people who ask for the same thing, it can only help.
There's a question from Mary.
Mary, if you could unmute yourself and
Hi.
where you're from.
Thank you. My name is Mary Duggan, and I'm from Home United Church. And I was just wondering if there seems to be a lot of interest in having actual video or actual vocals going along with the sheet music. Is there potential for, say, a musician to play the music, sing the lyrics, and have that forwarded to another church that doesn't have an organist or a musician or something like that? Is there potential to do that?
There is potential to do that. The issue is the licensing, putting that into our website for that. So I'm not saying that it won't ever happen, but currently that's not part of the plan. But you know, every region has asked for that. So yeah, every region has either asked for, yeah, every region has either asked for music for the churches that don't have a musician, or both, just to be a performance.
Yeah, because I mean, if you could just pay a musician to do what you're already paying for the license. So you pay the musician to do the task, to do the video. And then I don't know how that would work with the musician, if you would pay so much every time it's used, or if you pay one fee, do the recording. But it sounds to me like there's an awful lot of interest in something like that.
There is, yeah. Yeah. And then I see a question from Louise Mahood. How does, can you explain to me that question?
Louise, you want to come on and verbalize your question for Sarah?
Mute. Hi, good afternoon. Here we've had this lovely presentation about things in common in the common kind of economy. And it seems odd to me that communities of faith or gatherings within the United Church still have to pay a fee for access to an asset that is part of the denomination. I mean,
okay.
I can see that the fee is appropriate to the creator, whether it's the musician.
That's what you're paying.
Yeah.
That is what you're paying.
But don't you buy from the musician or the hymn writer, the musician, for the words? You pay for that at the time of purchase.
So any music that will be included from Voices United or More Voices, or then Let Us Sing, so the new music, all that will be covered by the license. And all you will be paying is the license. So you're not technically paying for the resource that we're creating. You're technically paying the creators through the licensing.
Okay. I'm just inviting the community to understand, you know, after this presentation about the life in the common good, and how does that manifest itself within the community of the United Church of Canada with this structure of a fee. So that's my, it's the ethos of it.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, it's actually probably a little bit better this way if people are paying the licensing fee, because I'm sure there are places that don't pay for licensing. And then in actual fact, that's the only way an artist, unless you're actually buying the sheet music from them, it's the only way they're going to make money is through licensing.
That's just my question.
Yeah.
And do we outright buy the material from the creator and then it becomes the property of the United Church of Canada? So say I go and write a hymn and I have all my fabulous lyrics and the whole bit. Pay me $1,000 once. And then it's property to be shared within the United Church of
And
Canada.
that's not how music licensing works. In general, not just United Church. In general, that's not how. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that because, but in general, that's not how it works. So yeah. And I see Cameron has put in a comment, and it's true. If you search the music in him on YouTube, you may find versions that are already recorded by other communities of faith, and some of them are quite singable. He's right. And they may include, and some of them are actually, they're great. They just have the lyrics in the video. And if it's a song that's included, you might be able to use that and to show licensing wise.
So there's a question in the chat from Stephen Louth. Will there be reporting? And then
Yeah,
Nina,
Stephen, could you tell me what kind of reporting you're looking for? Do you mean like how many times you use a hymn or?
Like right now with one license and even CCLA, every 6 months you'd have to report everything that we use during a service or extracurricular thing, every hymn, every song. I'm wondering if it's the same thing. Do we just pay the license fee and then we can use anything from Voices United and More Voices, or do we need to report on an ongoing basis?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. I'll have to ask.
Thanks.
Because I don't personally do that reporting for our church, so.
okay, there's another question, Betty Lou, from Nina Fulford.
Okay, Nina?
No, I was just making a comment about what Louise was talking about. As I understand it, when we produced a hymn book, we paid people a copyright fee to use it in the hymn book, but it was for specific purpose. And so to have the music individually later is another action, which is why it would require payment again, because it's not the same thing. And yes, currently our license requires us to record every time we use material, even though I thought at first that you didn't need to do anything about hymns that were already in Voices United, but that isn't true. The license still requires that you report everything, because some of the material in Voices United requires another payment to the writer, the producer, the originator.
Wow, I didn't know all that stuff happened behind the scenes for licensing. We do need, someone asked if we should maybe have something on licensing sometime, and I think that is something that we should think about. Yeah.
Yeah, we probably
all the
should.
details. Yeah, people don't understand it. Are there any last questions for Sarah?
There's one question from Maria in the chat, Maria Menzenthi. How does this affect a congregation that has the printed Voices United and More Voices in the pews?
It doesn't really affect them per se, I'd say. If you pay the one license fee now, then you could continue paying, I think it could be a higher fee, and not subscribe to Then Let Us Sing. Technically, it's still one license that you're subscribing to. So I mean, it doesn't really affect you really, except you have a different way to use the resource. So there will be some changes to the hymns that are included from the Voices United and from More Voices. Some of the wording might be, it will be in its original language. So the hymns will be published in their original language if they're different than they are when they were published in Voices United. So there will be some changes from those two books that you have, the two paper books that you have. There will be some changes from that.
Thank you.
Not seeing any more hands raised, Betty Lou. There's just some comments that people put in the chat, but no hands raised at this point.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on board and sharing with us and helping us as much as we can to sort it all out. Some of that was tough questions that I'm sure we need to do some work around licensing, maybe a music education piece or something. But
right.
Thank you so very much for your time, taking it on a Saturday, on a beautiful Saturday to share with us. We're so appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to move us now into the National Pastoral Relationship Equity Research Project. I'm going to invite Kamiko Karput to share with us on this particular project. Oh, there she is, and she's unmuted and she's ready to go. Very good. Kamiko, I'll ask you to share with us if you would, please.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks, Thanks for inviting us to come to be part of this. I'm actually in British Columbia, so not in your region. I'm working on this project with Marcy Gibson, and it is in partnership with the Anti-Racism and Equity Office of the United Church of Canada, as well as the Office of Vocations. So it's a research and consultation project, I like to say. It is research, but it is also because we really want to hear the wisdom of people in the church. This really comes from the continued challenges that we hear from people, particularly who are equity seeking, who are in ministry positions. So equity seeking would be people who identify as racialized or BIPOC, Indigenous, speak English as an additional language, Francophone, women, people who have physical or physical disabilities or neurodivergence, LGBTQ2S, trans, non-binary. So it's really people who have experienced times in their ministries where those issues have interfered with their ability to thrive, and has also perhaps been one of the reasons why a pastoral relationship might not be thriving as well as it might. And it's not because people in the communities of faith are deliberately trying to thwart those people necessarily, but because we swim in a culture where we continue to see straight, white, cis, and male as the norm. And we just live in that culture. And so we've heard all of this before. All of the work that we've been doing around anti-racism has really been asking us to look at not people who are racialized as an example, but our own experiences as people who are not racialized, for if that is the case for you. So what we're doing is we're inviting people, and I'm going to share my screen. I think that I was enabled to do this. So I've just got a couple of slides. So we're inviting people who identify as equity seeking, as I described before, to participate in either an online survey, a focus group, or a one-on-one interview. You will see a QR code there. If you've got a device, that QR code will take you directly to the website, and I will also paste that website link into the chat when I'm finished sharing the screen. So we want to hear from the ministry personnel, and we also want to hear from the communities of faith. If you are in a pastoral relationship with a ministry personnel who identifies as equity seeking, we also want to hear from you. And this is also because we hear sometimes from congregations who are feeling like they're struggling a little bit with the pastoral relationship and they don't know why. We've heard this from communities of faith where perhaps the pastoral relationship has ended and they don't know why. We also hear from people who have worked really, really hard to make it work. And we want to know those stories as well. What are the areas of communication that has worked well for you? What processes have worked well for you? What things that the church has done, and I say that not as your congregation, but as the broader church, have been really helpful? What are the things that you really, really wish were more in place to help even up front as you're getting into the pastoral relationship, to make it go more smoothly so that everybody can thrive in this pastoral relationship? So we are inviting people to participate. I'm going to put in here the link. We've already started to get some people filling in the questionnaire. And what we're looking for is particularly if there are common themes that we're hearing from people. And I would say that even as we're at early stages, there are some common themes that are emerging that will help General Council know what things that will be helpful to congregations, what will be helpful to clergy as they step into congregations. And that's the kind of stuff that we really, really would like to know so that we can support the church. We're trying to thrive. Everybody's trying to thrive. And this is what we're trying to do. There is a questionnaire online also for the communities of faith. I've put the link in the chat as well. Oops, I think I just sent it to a single person. Let me just fix that. So there is a questionnaire online for the communities of faith. And there are opportunities for a community of faith to gather about 4 people together, maybe from the MMP committee and or the board or the elders, whoever is in leadership, and have a conversation with one of the researchers. So it's a little bit like a focus group, except with only one congregation, but several people within the congregation. And to just hear from the congregation what they're experiencing in the pastoral relationship. So we're hoping that congregations will either self-identify. We're also asking for people who are working in the regions, for instance, the pastoral ministers, to maybe help identify some folks and to reach out to folks for us as well. So we're interested about the challenges, we're interested about the joys, we're interested about hearing what has worked, we're interested about hearing whether or not the things that are already in place from the General Council are actually being used by folks, whether they're useful. And so all those questions are identified in the survey and in the questions that we're asking. And you can do all of those things. You don't actually have to just do one. So you can participate in a focus group and you can fill out a questionnaire or a survey rather online. So that's the basics of this. I wonder if folks have any questions. And I will also, as folks are asking that, show you, or just to sort of help you find the, if you've got a device, you can use it. That's your QR code scan. It will take you directly to that website.
Super.
So George Isaac has his hand up. Betty Lou.
Thank you, Dale. George, I'll invite you to unmute and your camera. And I think we have to go off your screen. Do we?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In order for George, there we go. There's George. And where you're from, George?
I'm from Dalston Crown Hill United Church, and I have a bone to pick about people who are blind. Your list didn't include blind people.
It did not.
No.
Okay, so we have had that question, and I think that thank you. So it is not exclusive of people who are blind. And we're aware that some of the interfaces don't work so well for people who are blind.
I bring this up because we had a young fellow who went through confirmation class and couldn't get anything from the United Church in Braille. So I think that's a big omission.
So I will be taking note of that. And I would also invite you, for that particular reason, well, actually, I mean, George, I don't know if you, whether you're a layperson or whether you're clergy.
I'm a layperson, yes.
You're a layperson.
But our minister is online, I think, so he might be able to say something.
Okay, so we have had clergy ask that question about whether it's inclusive of people who are blind, and obviously it will be more challenging for them to fill out an online survey depending on the nature of their blindness. And there are ways that people can participate to talk about that issue. And this particular project is really about the pastoral relationship, and lots of other things have emerged out of it that would be really helpful for the church to hear about. So I would also encourage you to reach out to the church to mention that issue. And I've also made note of it.
Thank you. Oh, one other thing.
Yes.
I might mention that as a confirmation gift, we gave the young fellow a Bible. We got it through CNIB.
Nice.
Super.
Cam Watts has his hand up.
Thank you. Cam, I'll invite you to say where you're from, please.
Hi, Kamiko. I'm from Forest Grove United Church in North York, and I'm also on the Board of Admissions nationally. And you are talking about some of the stuff we've been wrestling with in many ways. So what I want to know is, when do we get a report and recommendations?
So this project we're kind of in the middle of it. It's a year-long project that roughly started in January, and we're aiming to have stuff in the winter or late fall. So that's our part of it. So we're in the information gathering stage at this point. We're interviewing people, we're holding focus groups. There are focus groups already listed on the website for ministry personnel, and it's based on category of how we think people might relate. And we know that there will be people who might relate to more than one category. And also, if there's a group of people who want to do it together, they can do that. And then the idea is that we will be looking at trends and what we can sort of discern as we head out of the summer and then create stuff. And thank you, Cameron, because this last year, Shining Water did do a study that was similar in focus, but very particular about the call process. So how do people get hired? How do people get into pastoral relationships? And this is while you are in it, although issues still continue to emerge in conversation around that early part, either of getting into or how things are set up at the beginning part.
Great. So I still want to ask you, what are you going to do with the stuff? Are you handing it off to somebody else, or because you're going to have a lot of qualitative research there?
Yes. So we are working with Adele Halliday. She's the staff lead on this project. And our role is to gather the information, see if we can figure out what it means and make some suggestions, recommendations, and then she and the Office of Vocation or whoever they determine will be the best people to move forward with it. We'll move forward from there.
Okay, thank you.
Is that?
Yeah, I know that if you ask 2 questions, you usually find out what you need to know. And if you ask 3, you end up getting volunteered to help. So that's all my questions.
Okay. So are there any other questions for Kamiko? I believe it could be an important opportunity to raise our own consciousness of necessity of equality. Okay, thank you. And then a comment?
No further hands raised at this point, Betty Lou.
Thanks, Dale. Another comment?
Thank you for that comment in the chat.
Okay. Well, Kamiko, thank you so much for dropping in on us from the West Coast today. We haven't gotten you up too early. That's good.
No, yeah. Yesterday I was in a meeting with somebody from your area who for 10 o'clock for them, so it was a 7 o'clock meeting for me in the morning, which, you know, it was still relatively civilized, but this is just lunchtime now.
Well, we really appreciate it. The region, Shining Waters, really appreciates your time and the important work that you and Marcy are doing. So thank you.
Well, and I hope that everybody just even has a look at the project, just to see what it is, and please encourage folks to participate, because that's how we get the information. So
super.
All right.
Thanks so much. Okay, Miigwech. I would like to invite William Simmons to the there we go. William will be presenting the United Church Bookstore, and we're so glad you're here. We know there's a bit of a video that's going to be shown as well, William, I believe. It says Susie has some
it's slides. It's just slides.
Slides. Okay, sorry, Susie. Okay, William, you go ahead.
Hi, I'm William from the United Church Bookstore. I've just got a couple of new titles for us, as well as an upcoming title that'll be out in 2 weeks now, roughly, with the book launch happening in the end of June, as well as a promotional code, just a sense of what's going on with the bookstore. So the first one is a new title called My Daily Discoverment. It's more of a reflectionary title. It uses 40 daily reflections from the author, reflection prompts with space to journal, and additional commentary from a diverse group of contributors. This resource equips readers to engage questions of calling, purpose, and decision-making, and it will inspire readers of all ages to refocus, reimagine, and renew their lives. The second book is titled For the Sake of the Common Good, and it's a collection of essays about author Lois not author, but former moderator and just general person Lois Wilson. And it brings together contributions from people who have been influenced by Lois Wilson's practical Christianity, her progressive values, and commitment to ending oppression in all forms, such as Louise Arbour, Lloyd Axworthy, Erwin Coulter, Bill Blakey, Aaliyah Hogbin, Mary Jo Letty, Stan McKay, and Michael Blair. And these essays really urge us to think about the many ways we can work towards the common good by welcoming refugees, developing ecological sustainable ways of life, repairing relations with Indigenous peoples, protecting the rights of LGBTQ+ people and all who are oppressed, defending political prisoners, and respecting religious rights and the place of faith in public life. So for the sake of the common good, gratefully acknowledges Lois Wilson's inspiring legacy while taking on the important task of continuing her work. This slide is just some of the other books that we have in our collection. And the third book is Building God's Beloved Community. It's coming out in June 23rd will be the launch date, and you can sign up through United in Learning for the online launch event for it. It started as a confirmation resource, but it really draws on the expertise of United Church theologians and ministries from across the country and outlines the church's approach to some of the big questions about God, the Bible, theology, and narrates the life of Jesus as both a historical figure and the Messiah, and provides an overview of both the history of Christianity and United Church within Christianity. This book also offers insight to the United Church worship tradition, doctrine, and governance, while introducing readers to its legacy of social justice as a lived expression of faith. If you want to keep up with any new books, product launches, events, promotional codes, author talks, you can follow our social media channels, which are both Faith in Our Books on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, it's just straight Faith in Our Books, whereas in Instagram, it has an underscore, so faith_in_our_books. We also put news in the weekly Essentials newsletter and the UCRD monthly, and we have a UCRD monthly newsletter. Both can be found on the United Church website. And we have a promotional code currently active until June 10th, which is Shining20, which will give you 20% all orders off over $60 until June 10th. That's what I have. Is there any questions or comments or anything?
Okay. Anything for William, folks? Looks like it's quiet.
Nothing now. That is our website and my email. If there's in the chat, if there's anything that comes up, just let me know.
One question for
Oh,
Mary.
I do see it. Yes.
We do have.
Hi, William. I was just wondering if you offer access to audiobooks.
I'm not sure that we have any like audiobooks themselves. I know that we do have ebooks, and we have a few worship services in that, but I'm not sure if we have any of the audiobooks at this time.
The reason that I asked that question is because I go online a lot at my library, and I get audiobooks, and I can listen. No matter where I am, I can listen. I can't always sit down and read.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's feasible for your format or not.
I'm not sure now, but I have it in my chat to people above me about what can we do about audiobooks, and I'll see what can be done.
Good.
There's a comment in the chat box from Isaac, which is maybe sort of a question as well. It says no books in French. Maybe there's a question mark behind that.
Yes, there's the French Lisani from Eric. Eric is faster than I am with the resources. So yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you, William. I think we got that in the chat, the page that you want us to have. We really appreciate you coming today, and we know it was short notice for you to present. Rebecca wasn't able to come, so thank you for filling in for us. We did want to hear from the book room, so it's always something that's a highlight when we're together face to face. So it's good to make sure we include it in our time together. So thank you again, William, and blessings on your ministry. Chief McGuire.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak.
Hey, folks, we are about to look at the financial report and the budget. And so Peter has joined me. We're going to move on to hear the financial report. You've had an opportunity to review the financial report and proposed draft budget for 2023 which are available on the website and were in your workbooks. A link is being posted to the chat for these documents. I invite past President David Leighton Brown and Deborah Hart, co-chair of Grants and Missions Support Committee, to unmute yourselves and turn on your cameras. So I'll just give Deborah a chance there. There we go. David is going to offer a narrative picture of the budget, after which Deborah will speak about the good work that is supported by the region's grants and mission support. So thank you both for being here and sharing this with us today.
Thank you. As our chair just said, I'm going to give a narrative picture of the budget. I'm not going to go line by line through the numbers, which all of you will be most grateful for. And I want to remind everyone of what you don't need reminding of, but the members of our congregations in the pews typically do, that we are now in a different church structure. People remember the way things used to be. A good example is in this year's annual meeting in my home congregation. A member pointed out that presbytery was collecting our assessment and we were paying our assessment to presbytery. And when a stickler for accuracy like me pointed out that presbyteries don't exist anymore, we now have regional councils, they said, oh yes, it's regional council that is getting our assessment. Well, as you all know, it is not regional council that gets our assessments now. Under our new structure, assessments are collected by the national church. In our previous structure, our assessments from Toronto Conference stayed within Toronto Conference. And we were one of the wealthiest conferences in Canada. Now, under our new structure, assessments are collected by the national church and distributed equally to all regions across the country. That means we in Shining Waters are net supporters of other regions. If you look at the budget, you will see that we receive an assessment in our revenue of $325,000. Our collective assessments are probably on the order of $1 million. And that other $700,000 is going to other parts of the United Church of Canada. You'll see that we also receive an M&S allocation from the national church of $240,000. That's not the money contributed to M&S from within Shining Waters region, because again, we probably contributed in collectivity more than that. That is our equal share of all of the M&S contributions across the country. But not all regions are the same. Just as every community of faith has an appropriate, for example, staff structure and expenses that might vary according to the size of the congregation, according to the state of its building and other property, the array of ministry and program activity that it engages in. So regions differ, but every region receives the same assessment allocation and every region receives the same M&S allocation. I want to just give you an example of one comparison, comparing Shining Waters region to our sister region, which I term that way because we share our executive minister, Peter Hartman's, with them. That's Canadian Shield region, our neighbor to the north. according to the most recent data available, which is from the workbook of 2020, there are 185 preaching places in Shining Waters, but there are 93 preaching places in Canadian Shield, roughly a 2-to-1 ratio. If we look at the number of households under pastoral care in Shining Waters, there are 23,719. In Canadian Shield, there are 8,052, roughly a 3-to-1 ratio. But we received the same exact assessment and the same exact M&S allocation, despite the disparity in size. So that's the first thing to understand about how our budget works. Next thing is that though we have more needs to support a larger number of people and a wider array of programming, that doesn't mean we have more resources other than those that we can create for ourselves. We don't simply have the same staff, for example, that we had in Toronto Conference. We have heard at previous annual meetings of this council that when we formed our regional staff structure, we had 13 fewer positions than the combined Toronto staff and 4 presbyteries had. And the number of those positions has declined since that point. Our staff do wonderful work for us. I am especially aware of that because during my time as president of Shining Waters Region, I met once or twice a year with the presidents of other regions across the country. And it was clear to me and clear to them that we were remarkably fortunate in the caliber of people and the excellence of work that they have done for us. We are an envy of many regions. We also have volunteers who do marvelous things for us. We worked very hard in the transition from the old structure to the new to simplify our processes, to eliminate the layers of repeated approval that things had to go through from committee to commission to presbytery to conference under the old structure. We have tried to make it the case that decisions get made once rather than multiple times under our current structure. We still rely extensively on the kinds of volunteers that we nominated and elected earlier in our meeting this afternoon. I want to just mention 2 other things about the budget, though. The first of those has to do with our properties. It is true that we have, for a number of years now, seen churches close. It was the case with Toronto Conference that budget relied on the sales of church properties. And currently, in order to maintain the activity that our budget contains, we also sell church properties. But 2 things flow from that. First is if we don't sell properties, if we try to keep them going, When we look at the financial statement for 2021 contained within the budget document, you'll see that we had rental income for our region-owned properties of $195,000. But we had what is called managed properties expense of $378,000. It costs us more money than those properties earn for us simply to own them, because we still have to keep the lights on and pay insurance and pay necessary repairs and so on. It's hard to forecast those budget amounts into the future because we don't know what rental income we'll be able to get, and we don't know for sure whether we're going to have to replace roofs, but we know we will. But the general relationship between costs and revenues remains the same. And in part, that all leads to one of the major budget changes of the last couple of years. Shining Waters has entered into a relationship with the United Property Resource Corporation, UPRC, for the development of some of our region-owned properties that will, after redevelopment, give us an ongoing revenue stream instead of the one-time cash infusion of selling that property. And if you look at the budget, you will see, beginning in 2024, in our multi-year budget projections, the first appearance of revenue generation from those redeveloped properties in a modest amount of $38,000. In 2025, we expect that to grow to over $300,000. In 2026, to about $550,000. And that increase will continue on into future years, partly because development projects will be completed, and sadly, because there may be other closed churches in future that also get redeveloped. In future, but not today, we will see our budget brought into balance without the need to rely on the sale of property at all. It will be a multi-year process to get to that point, but we are embarked on that financially healthy journey right now. I think that gives you a picture of the context and shape of our budget. I'd now like to turn things over to Deborah Hart to talk about how we have spent money on grants and mission support. And I would like to make just one other thing I had meant to say earlier in talking about the new structure. In the old structure, there were entirely legitimate complaints that donations to the Mission and Service Fund were sometimes being used for administrative expenses. Under the new structure, it is required that M&S allocation only be spent to support mission and service and not administration. And it falls to our executive to ensure that that policy is complied with. I know our executive does that because on at least one occasion, I have myself asked, not because I was in any doubt, but to get it on the record and to ensure that all members of the executive are aware that our entire M&S allocation is being spent on M&S and more. So with that, let me turn things over to Deborah.
Thank you, David. It's good to be able to share this information today. And to give you some updates on our over $1 million of spending in grants. And I would like to give you just some information and updates on the 2022 funding as context for the 2023 budget. In 2021, the Mission Support Committee and the Grants Review Committee amalgamated to streamline and coordinate the work of the region. And the new joint committee has developed a multi-paged framework for grants, considering who, what, and how we will do our funding. And I'm going to ask Susie to put up some slides for me. All our funded ministries have to show a demonstrated commitment to living in right relations with Indigenous peoples, becoming an anti-racist church and or community, and welcoming people of all ages, abilities, races, sexual orientation and gender identification, identities, and marginalization, any removal of barriers that for participation in the church or the communities. So all of those who apply for grants must show that commitment. And also the grant applicants are in line with what's in the Regional Council for the manual. Great, then the second slide, please. Yes, and considering the grant applications, part of the lens for this ministry will be joining our collective hearts, voices, and resources to witness to the gospel and vision of Jesus Christ for a compassionate and just society. Secondly, that we'll work in partnership wherever we're able with communities, with our ecumenical denominational partners, and with interfaith partners for our work. That we will focus on children, youth, and young adults, and honor and live into intercultural mission and ministry, and living in covenant with Mother Earth and all my relations. So those are some of the guidelines for the grant work. There are 31 recipients of grants for 2022. I've marked, they're in 6 groupings according to our granting formula or our framework. And I've put an asterisk beside those that are funded partly or fully by mission support, your M&S funds. And Dave Jager shared some of that earlier today in his presentation. So you will see our 4 camps that we have within our region, and the Go project are for children, youth, and young adults. We have had a long relationship with community ministries at Davenport, Perth, Jane Finch, and in Regent Park. And the next slide. Our ecumenical chaplaincies. We've had a number of those in hospitals over the years, and those have decreased as hospitals have taken on their own spiritual care within their own budgets, which is great. So we have the ecumenical chaplaincy at U of T, that's a joint United and Presbyterian organization. Mount Sinai Hospital chaplaincy funded by the United and the Anglicans over the years, and Muskoka chaplaincy. Our Indigenous ministries, we heard a little bit about this earlier. In the former conference, over half of our yearly M&S funding went to support Christian Island, Georgina Island, and Toronto Urban Native Ministry. In the new structure now, the National M&S Fund makes those donations directly, funds them directly, so they know across the country what's equitable for all of the ministries. And then our regions get our equal grant money that David mentioned, how we're each funded equally across all of the regions. Next slide. We have 4 missions within our presbytery when we're doing our intercultural work: the Filipino Christian Fellowship, the Good Tree Korean, the Francophone Ministry, and the Tamil Mission. And then there are a series of outreach missions that you will see ministries listed that are supported, some from the regional funds and some from M&S over the years. Just one to note that the Christian Resource Center in Regent Park amalgamated within the last couple of years with Fred Victor. And so that is now all one organization. So the funds for the above, all of those 31 ministries total over $1 million, $1,134,032. And the next slide, that funding comes from a variety of sources. The mission and service grant that we receive as the mission. Each of the presbyteries previously had net annual income grants, and so we still receive those and have access to 5% for capital grants. The various other presbyteries, especially Toronto Southwest and or Southwest Presbytery and Toronto Southeast, had some of their own funds, and we have inherited those. So we are able to grant from those and also from the regional property sales. So those are the areas for 2022. And we expect that it will be similar grants in this coming year. We've established working groups as well for this year to work with the missions and the community ministries and Aura to discuss options of multi-year funding, gradual reduction of funds for some of them, other options that are available for funding, and ways to partner and support these ministries. We inherited many of these organizations from the various presbyteries and are glad to continue to fund them. We will be discussing with the outreach projects a decreasing funding plan so that we can free up some new resources for funding new projects, hopefully by 2024 or 2025. Also in this spring, the executive voted to consolidate many of the various previous funds that we inherited into one fund, and terms of reference have just been developed for their use. The 5-year budget projection predicts a decrease of about 26,000 in M&S givings, but actually we do not know the amount that we will receive probably until the fall, although it was great news to hear from Dave Jager that contributions actually went up to M&S, so maybe we'll receive an increase instead of a decrease. Wouldn't that be great in the church? So we don't know that exact amount yet, and we will have funding from the same other sources for the 2023 donations and funding that we will make in November for the coming year. I just want to say that I was also sorry to miss the meeting yesterday afternoon for the proposals, as I was taking part in a memorial service that had been planned for several months. And so I wasn't in on the discussion around the budget information that has been requested. And although I understand that there was a request for actual amounts for each organization that they receive. So the list of those 31 organizations is on the regional website, but currently no dollar amounts are there on the public site. The committee gave thoughtful consideration of this and noted that the National Church's website also does not list the exact amounts that are given. And it's not, I would say that our amounts are on the official executive minutes. You can find them there and access them. And I've been in conversation with George Isaac and given him a chart of the actual amounts and offered to do a Zoom meeting with his congregation or to come and visit in person and explain the various amounts and the background context for each one. And I'd love to do that with any of your congregations to help explain the mission support and make that as transparent as possible. The reason for not posting the amounts publicly is not about transparency, but it's that the dollar amount doesn't give you any context to help you understand what it means. As you haven't received the application forms, which ask for several pages of details. You haven't met with the organizations, as our committee has, to understand the context of their request in their financial circumstances. It doesn't tell you what percentage of their budget that money covers, if it's core funding or for a specific project, or if it receives other United Church funding or from other denominations where there are partnerships, nor what capacity the organization has for other fundraising or sources of revenue. So I'd like to just give you two examples. If I tell you that ORA, the Anglican United Refugee Alliance, receives $53,000 of M&S funding, what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you that our Anglican partners donated $57,500, or how many United Church or Anglican congregations or individuals also donate. It doesn't tell you, despite the pandemic, that 76 sponsorship applications for refugees from 20 different countries, working with 54 sponsoring groups, made up of 539 volunteers to support 224 refugees, is currently happening. And that many of the volunteers and groups are United Churches, often working with neighboring Anglican churches or community groups. For example, the group that's in East Gwillimbury, that includes Knox, Share and Hope, Mount Albert, and Virginia United Congregations, to just give one example. That number of 53,000 doesn't tell you that the work of ORA in our region is so highly recognized that the federal government, through Immigration, Refugee Citizenship Canada, has just given ORA a grant to use their superb model and manual of training of their volunteers in our congregations to develop a national training online platform to be used by community and church groups all across the country. So what started as the church's response back in the days of the Vietnamese refugees over about 50 years ago has continued with our support. And now we're going to be national leaders of our refugee work for the whole country, offering our work through ORA. So I think that's what you really want to know and be able to share with your congregations, more than any specific dollar amount without a context. My second example would be Camp Scugog. Our 4 United Church camps each received $20,000 of your grant funds, but that figure doesn't reflect how much congregational support your area camps each receive from many of your congregations through donations or volunteer time, or how much funding they receive from the Toronto United Church Corporations, the TUCC, Camping Opportunities Fund. So Camp Scugog, that's been offering summer camp programs for children, youth, and mothers affected by poverty since 1931, receives $95,000 from that Camping Opportunities United Church Fund. And I think it receives about, from the notes, about $35,000 from congregations that donate to help supplement the cost of campers and counselors. So that $20,000 figure doesn't tell you that 80% of their staff were campers themselves at one point. Over 50% are BIPOC, so that the children and youth attending camp have staff that look like them and that understand their circumstances. So what do you report to your congregation? That the United Church gives $20,000 to Camp Scugog, or $150,000 plus volunteer time to the camp? That's the kind of questions that come by just putting a dollar amount up on the screen. So that's 2 examples of 31. I think it's the really good news stories behind the numbers and beyond the funding figures that we want to share with our congregations and be both proud and humble about the small part we play in this amazing work. And so the next step from our committee is to work on the telling those stories and getting them out to you. If you look in the newsletter, the Currents newsletter, they're trying each month to put up stories of these various missions and ministries that we support. We used to have M&S bus tours that took us to the various sites, but now you can just go to the websites of many of these organizations and get a virtual tour for your congregation to know. And our committee would also like to know how many of your congregations are directly supporting these ministries and missions, that you can be sure have had the vetting and the assurance that they meet our United Church values and criteria. So all of our committee cares greatly about how this money transforms is transformed into the Christ ministry and mission, or as we heard today earlier, the hands and feet and voices of ours and Christ's ministry. And we seek to work together to bring those gifts and resources together and to tell the stories. So I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. You might have seen in the nominations report, we have 3 vacancies on our committee, and we try to fill them from various aspects of the region. So if this is an area of interest to you, please let the nominations committee know.
Thank you, Deborah. Well done. Thank you, David, as well. If you have questions or comments, I'm going to ask you to please raise your hand. There will be a 90-second limit for each speaker, and there will be an opportunity for a final 60 seconds of comment by David if he would like. And so I'll ask if there are any questions or comments.
There's no hands up yet, Betty Lou, but in the chat, there was a question earlier from Nanke Jean Kint about how is sharing calculated across the regions of the church in broad brushstrokes. That's more of a general question, but.
I think that I answered that already. It was the decision in establishing the new structure that all regions would receive equal allocations. And so that's how sharing is calculated across the church. The General Counsel Office collects all assessment dollars and collects all M&S contributions and distributes it equally across regions. There isn't any weighting according to number of pastoral charges or number of preaching spaces or number of households under pastoral care or number of members. It's by region.
Another comment.
If there's anything else that you mean by the question, then would you please amplify?
Nenki also wrote in the chat, yes, you did answer it. I wondered how that was equitable.
Well, that was the remit that was voted on by all of us and was approved.
And part of it was a recognition that some regions like British Columbia and Shining Waters and Niagara, Horseshoe Falls have the ability to have other funds, whereas in Canadian Shield, for example, our sister region, often when a building closes, it might actually cost us money. Not recently, but up until very recently, it could be a liability, not even just a straight wash. So part of the rationale around reorganization was to create sustainable funding for regions across the United Church. And you may remember in Toronto Conference, there was a really strong desire expressed through the region to share. And, you know, the sharing has been a blessing to the church. I know for, in the case of Canadian Shield, the former Manitou region, a conference, would have gone bankrupt, period. And you know, they have unique challenges in that 40% of their communities of faith don't have ministry personnel, are lay-led. Now I know all our churches are lay-led, but from a ministry personnel standpoint, they don't have ministry personnel, and some of them, like Hornpain, for example, probably will never have ministry personnel, and yet they have vibrant Christian communities. Yeah. And so each region has its own rubric and struggle. And so our struggle are different than our neighbors, et cetera. And so the idea behind reorg was to have an equal proportion.
Okay, and then there's another question in the chat box from Richard Wazenalek. Why? I think this was in response to your presentation, Deborah, but why not disclose with the budget all the background information to provide the proper context as opposed to having us search through everything to determine the context before we approve?
It would be great if we could write up all the context for all of them. That would take a lot of work on behalf of our committee, but I think that is a goal that we would work towards, so that you have the context and the amount that they would receive. And that will be something that our committee will be looking at in the fall, is how to give that context and the good news stories to tell them, so that you can share them with your congregations. I know when I visit the various ministries, and I visited most of them, that I get so excited by them that I put my own donations, my own charitable donations in, and encourage my congregation as well to donate to them, because I get so excited when you see the work that's being done with really the small amount of resources we contribute. We get to claim some credit or some part in the work that they do, being the frontline folks for us. And they're very inspirational stories. So yes, that would be a goal, to be able to do that.
Thanks, Deborah.
George Isaac has his hand up.
George, I'll get you to put your camera on and put your mic on.
Okay, good. Yeah, I made a lot of comments yesterday, so I'm not going to repeat them. But I do want to query Deborah about the dollar amounts for M&S and other grants. There is still a value in giving the dollar amounts. You're suggesting that the dollar amounts don't tell the whole story, but they do tell a story. For example, in the camps, I would like to see the camps get more money. If I only knew, I would, some people may assume that the camps are just riddled with money because they're getting it all from the United Church. If they learn that they're only getting 25,000, they might give more. So there is a value in giving the dollar amounts that you haven't explored.
Yes, but also I could, as I said to you, one of the camps gets $150,000 from the United Church. But because we have access to know that they're getting funding from the Camping Opportunities Fund and other sources, then that frees up to decide, well, we give them 20,000 instead of 50,000 because they are having access to other United Church funds. So how do you get the overall United Church picture compared to just that 20,000? That's the dilemma for me.
Yeah, but I'm always for more openness. And as I said, I would gladly give to the camps more money. Anyway, enough said.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Thank you, George. Are there other questions or comments before we give David a last chance to speak to the budget? 3 years into our new model, how are we doing and what is expected?
So we have a 5-year projection in the budget, which was posted, and we're pretty enthusiastic about our property and development. I mean, to be transparent, it's a new partnership with the United Church Property Corporation. I've been really excited about the progress. I'm going to get a progress report in 2 weeks. And I think that's a real positive, a significant shift for both the United Church and our regional council. We just didn't have the tools before that we trusted to know how to proceed with using our resources in a different way, and it does afford a new opportunity. And there's also examples of churches beyond Shining Waters. For example, St. Luke's United Church in our region is working with the property corporation to develop its property, and it was highlighted in the Globe and Mail and actually across a number of periodicals in Ontario and and on television. As one example of one of the projects that the Property Corporation is doing, and we're doing the same. So, so that's how we're progressing. So.
Now, Sarah, you had your hand up. Have you lowered your hand then? You had your answer?
I was just going to say thank you very much, Deborah, for explaining what we do, and it's more complicated than it looks on the one line. And I would like to remind everybody that we do have 3 openings, and we would love to have somebody join us who is of a mind that can get as excited as Deborah and the rest of the committee is. It'd be fabulous to have more people join us and come on and do what needs to be done.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah is on the committee and she thought that her term was up and she said, "Can't I serve another term?" And then found out she actually is. So.
So seeing no more questions and seeing no more comments, folks wanting to make comment. David, did you want to add anything before we take the vote?
No, I think I'll echo the compliments to Deborah for our informative and fascinating presentation. And I'll just invite you to put the motion to a vote.
Thank you, David. So moved by Dayton, it's getting late. Moved by David Leighton Brown and seconded by Deborah Hart that Shining Waters Regional Council approved the 2023 draft budget as presented. You have heard the motion before you. If you wish to vote yes, please raise your hand now. For participants on the phone, please use *9. And if there are multiple users using your computer, please type in your vote in the chat to Kim.
Okay, I think we have the yes votes counted.
Thank you, Dale. If you wish to vote no, please raise your hand now.
I think we have those counted.
Thank you, Dale. If you wish to abstain, I'll invite you to raise your hand now.
We have the abstentions, and the result of the vote, Betty Lou, is 84 yes, 4 no, and 3 abstentions.
That motion is carried. Well, we made it to the end, my friends, and I'm going to get you out of here before 5 o'clock, even with all the confusion we had with the agenda. Hopefully it didn't seem too erratic for folks and all over the place. Hopefully it flowed for folks. But as Brandon made reference to a little while ago, I have a letter that I'd like to read to Shining Waters. To Shining Waters Regional Council, the executive, the court of the region as a whole, and to the staff. It is with deep sadness that I announce my resignation as president. Due to heart health concerns, I'll be stepping down from my responsibilities as president of Shining Waters Regional Council at the end of this AGM tomorrow, Sunday, May the 29th, 22. David Leighton Brown will pick up the presidency reins again until Tina Conlon becomes your president in a year's time. I will also be leaving my community of faith, the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, as of June the 1st, 2022, with a deep and profound loss of family. Heart concerns seem to take on a life of their own once they present themselves. God's peace and grace I leave with you. Thank you and Megwetch for the honor and the privilege to serve you as your president-elect and your president for these last 2 years. I declare this meeting adjourned, and I will send us out with a blessing, and may God go with you. May the blessing of God, the giver of every good and perfect gift, the blessing of Jesus Christ who summons us to service, and the blessing of the Holy Spirit who inspires generosity and love be with us all. Amen.